it should go pretty fast.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning. It's now 10:07. Welcome to the committee meeting of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board on Academic and Workforce Success. I'd like to welcome everyone and also reiterate that make sure we all understand that Chairman Stedman has appointed Mr. Javed Anwar to be a member of this committee for this particular meeting. Please be advised that this meeting is being broadcast over the internet. Agenda item number 2 is consideration of approval of the minutes for the June 19th, 2019 committee meeting. Is there any discussion or comments? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of that meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams. A second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is consideration of approval of the consent calendar. Items listed on the consent calendar are items 5H, 5 through 5M, 1 through 7, 5N 2. At this time, I would like to request that agenda item 5M be removed from the consent calendar as we have supplemental material for this item. Agenda item 5M7 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the appointment of members of the Post-Secondary Educational Opportunities for Persons in Intellectual and Development Disability Advisory Council. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Motion by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Does any board member want to add any other item to the consent calendar at this time? Does any member want to remove any of the agenda items from the consent calendar? There's no discussion now. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is public testimony on agenda items relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Today, we do not have anyone registered to testify, so we'll go on to the next item, which is agenda item 5A. Is a report to the Committee on Activities of the Certification Advisory Council. Dr. Peebles will be presenting this item. Dr. Peebles, this is for an informational item only.
Thank you, and good morning, board members. First of all, let me explain why I'm presenting this item and not someone else. Typically, our advisory committees, and you'll see one of these later with the Graduate Education Advisory Committee, we ask the chairs of those committees to come and make these presentations. But in this particular case, the chair actually, last year's chair actually went off the committee, and we haven't had another committee meeting to elect a new chair. And while we tried to coerce and cajole a couple of other committee members to come and make this presentation, we could find no takers, so you're stuck with me. The Certification Advisory Committee provides advice and recommendations to the board in 2 major areas. One regarding the standards and procedures to be used for carrying out the rules and regulations applying to post-secondary institutions in Texas that are not public or ICUT institutions or out-of-state institutions that want to operate in Texas. And their major function, though, is to review proposals for certificates of authority. And then they make a recommendation to the commissioner and to the board on approval or denial of those proposals for certificates of authority. And in this past academic year, you have seen 2 of those, one from the Medicine College of Biomedical Engineering Technology, which is in the Dallas area, that trains students to work on medical equipment is their primary focus. And then the others from the Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine. And I will end it with that and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Peebles? Okay, if not, that was for informational only. We move on to agenda item 5B, which is a report to the Committee on Activities of the Graduate Education Advisory Council. We invite up Dr. Karen Butler-Purry, who's chair of this committee, will provide a brief update on the council's activities along with Dr. Peebles, and it will be available for questions. This item is for informational item purposes only. Welcome, Doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. The Graduate Education Advisory Committee purview includes a regular review of current issues relating to graduate education. GIAC is composed of faculty and administrators from public graduate degree granting institutions of all sizes, regions, and missions. There is at least one representative from a private research institution and one graduate student member. For the 2018-19 academic year, I served as the chair. I am the associate provost for graduate and professional studies at Texas A&M, and our vice chair was Dr. Andrea Gallardo, dean of the Graduate College at Texas State University. The committee met 3 times last year. Some of the highlights of our discussions will come next. There were 4, I guess, major topics that I wanted to highlight today. Discussions about the content for the forthcoming strategic plan for graduate education, trends in master's and online graduate programs, student support and value of graduate education, and 60 by 30 Texas Marketable Skills Goals application in graduate education. On the strategic plan topic, in 2017-18, a GIAC subcommittee and the full committee worked with the coordinating board staff to draft the strategic plan for graduate education. Throughout the fall of 2018, GIAC members reviewed drafts to further develop components of the strategic plan for graduate education and identify data sources for the proposed measures, provided feedback and comments as the board polished the draft. The GIAC looks forward to applying the final version of the strategic plan when approved. A second topic of discussion was trends in master's and online graduate programs, including micro-credential characteristics and considerations. Dr. Nalos presented data on online graduate programs, including number of programs, delivery modes, and disciplines, which seeded discussions on the capacity and expansion of graduate programs. Institutions offer certificate programs within degree programs and standalone certificates for non-degree seeking students. A micro-credential can formalize and highlight content mastery from particular courses and outcomes. And students use these micro-credentials to convey their skills to employers. Some institutions offer certificates online to attract students and use their approach as a mechanism to identify students who meet the standards for admission to their graduate degree programs. When identifying areas for new master's programs and certificates, institutions consider workforce needs, career opportunities, and earning potential for students when they graduate. Areas of demand can start as certificates and evolve to degree programs, or some of these areas actually become popular with undergraduate students and rise to graduate degree programs. Institutions generally gather information from potential employers to understand the competencies and skill sets that they might be looking for in graduates. And it was also noted that jobs that do not currently exist are often created in the future because of graduate education. Texas will continue to be a net exporter of graduate degree holders for some time. Therefore, the capacity and expansion assessments should include a national context. Also, GIAC spent considerable time discussing how institutions establish stipend levels and competitive funding packages for graduate students. Many institutions conduct a comparison of peer institutions to establish a baseline. Some use a national financial study, which provides data on graduate student funding ranges by discipline based on a survey of institutions across the country. Funding support is often directed to PhD programs because most master's programs are professional and short duration. PhD students are typically supported with teaching or research assistantships and tuition payments. External grant support is used to support PhD students in STEM programs, while internal funding is typically utilized to support most non-STEM students because of the limited availability of external funding in those fields. Further, many institutions also are providing support now for student travel to engage in professional development by presenting at research conferences, enhancing their skills and knowledge, and engaging in field or off-site research activities. Our fourth major topic of discussion was the application of the 60 by 30 Texas Marketable Skills Goals, which charges public institutions in Texas to document, update, and communicate the skills students acquire in their programs. GIAC members from 3 institutions discussed how their institution went about identifying marketable skills for each of their graduate programs. Generally, these institutions are aiming to balance soft skills and discipline-specific skills. They engaged employers to articulate their expectations for employees and the skills that students should acquire before entering the workplace. Following those presentations, there was rich dialogue about these early implementations and ideas and suggestions that other institutions may use in identifying and posting marketable skills for their graduate programs by 2020 deadline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Butler-Purry. Rex, Dr. Peebles, any comments? Oh, yes, Commissioner?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for your work, and thank the committee for its work. I read every proposal for a new doctoral program, and the components or the elements of the proposals that I look at most closely are the number of hours required for the degree, the means by which or the methods by which students can meet those requirements, and then I look at financial aid. One of the things that I think is striking about Texas compared to other states is our support for graduate students, particularly in doctoral programs, is well beyond what you find in top research universities. I'm very concerned that we're not making very much progress on this issue. If you'll recall the presentation that was made a few moments ago, loans constitute 60% of the types of financial aid that graduate students receive. That's way too high.
I think you meant well below, not beyond, in terms of the support.
Yes, I'm sorry if I
just wanted to
misspoke.
clarify that.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got to do something about lowering the cost of doctoral programs. I look at when I review these proposals, I look at whether the program has an element that allows students to get course credit for work experience, particularly in professional degrees. I take a look at whether there is a competency-based there are competency-based components in the program so that students can, instead of simply taking 90 hours of courses beyond a bachelor's degree, can simply take qualifying exams that cover the content in some of those courses and give students credit for that. But I urge the committee to continue looking at this issue of financial aid, because most of these students are graduating in fields where they're not going to make a lot of money, and we're burdening the students with debt for 25, 30, maybe the rest of their professional lives. I think that's immoral.
All right. And, I mean, I would agree with you that certainly, cost is a challenge. I will say that all of the institutions really are, looking carefully at this. I think the previous speaker was also mentioning that the assistantship data wasn't included in there, and so the percentage of, student loan is not as high as it appears. And I think, as I mentioned, assistantships is sort of how most of us pay doctoral students. But what I will say is that there is a lot of new effort institutions to understand, like where our graduates are going to, help us better provide the right type of professional development so they could be successful. We are all trying to, be, kind of, I guess, have more data transparency and therefore understand how long it's taking, what's the, attrition rates. And so I think there's a lot of consciousness about being very deliberate and much more emphasis on career development, because I think, in looking at where the graduates go, we find that many of them have very successful careers, but a lot of times the path is not so clear. It's easy in some fields to understand when you finish your PhD, this is exactly what you're doing. But, there's some studies that show, like, for example, Google very much so values English graduates, PhD graduates. And so what we're trying to do is help our graduates understand the marketable skills that they have. And so I think the Texas, 60 by 30 is timely because there's a lot of focus on transferable skills and how do we help them develop them along with the discipline skills, and then how do we help them be able to articulate them so that then, someone who has really great communication skills can work in a lot of different companies and they have creativity, they're risk takers. And so I mean, I think the value of a doctoral education, is still, beyond question, a good investment. But you are right that we have to be careful about the cost in saddling students with student loan debt. But we are very, all working hard to address that.
Well, I've seen some improvement in the proposals for doctoral programs in giving attention to the burden, the financial burden on graduates, on doctoral students, but there's still a long way to go, and we're not making progress as quickly as we should. And I urge you and your colleagues on the committee to continue to look at this issue and find ways to hold costs down. Thank you.
I agree.
Any other comments? Yes, Dr. Peebles?
Just one quick comment. I'd like to add my thanks to the committee for the work that they've done, particularly on the strategic plan for graduate education, which the committee imposed upon themselves some metrics with regard to things like retention and placement and that kind of stuff that really will focus on a lot of the topics that Dr. Butler-Perry just talked about and mentioned, and also they've created this subcommittee, if you will, to look at this whole issue of stipends and
Yes.
study that some more too. So so I think, we need to give them some credit and applaud them for starting to confront some of these issues head on, and then hopefully we could make the kind of progress that we need to make.
Yeah, I agree. And I also would like to thank the committee and you, but echo what Commissioner Butterthis has said and Dr. Peebles, and also seeing that the discussion is going on with the Graduate Council Committee on 60 by 30 Texas and the marketable skills, which is very important for our state. So thank you for being here, Dr. Butler-Perry. Thank you and for the work that you do and your committee.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item C1, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the request for Texas A&M University Corpus Christi for a Bachelor of Science degree with a major in civil engineering. I'd like to invite up to the podium here some guests that we have. They're welcome to come up from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Dr. Calandra Phillips. Is Dr. Phillips here? Would you like to come up and say a few words? Dr. Phillips is the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. L.D. Chen is the Director of the School of Engineering and Computer Science and Associate Dean for the College of Science and Engineering. And Dr. Amy Aldridge Sanford is the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. Welcome, and if you could please state your names and feel free to say a few words, but I think first Dr. Peebles is going to say a few words, and then we'll be happy to introduce you and be able to comment if you'd like on the proposal. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So this proposal is for a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering, in some sense a traditional face-to-face program, but it would have some concentrations in some rather non-traditional fields, if you will, of things like geomatics and unmanned aircraft systems, hydraulics and water resources, and I'm sure that they can tell you a lot more about that. And also reflective of a trend that I've seen lately in some of these degree programs. They will also offer certificates along the way to their students in either coastal resilience or the unmanned aircraft systems, which sort of directly speaks to the notion of marketable skills. And it will tell people directly that this is one of the things that they have learned and mastered in that program. There has been a clearly established workforce demand for this. As Texas keeps growing, then the need for engineers keeps growing as well. And so there's the rate of job openings over the next 10 years is predicted to be about 10.6%. And the number of graduates will not be able to keep up with that demand at this particular time. And they have also agreed to certain contingencies that they will need to hire to core faculty starting in year 3. As the program ramps up and enrollment grows, then clearly they will need more faculty, and so they have agreed to hire 2 more core faculty members by the start of year 3 of this program.
Okay. Dr. Phillips, welcome, and would you like to say a few words?
On behalf of Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, we are pleased to present to you our proposal for civil engineering. We have worked with the city as well as the Port of Corpus Christi to design an academic program that would be a benefit to the students as well as the city in terms of their workforce needs. So our program in civil engineering does have a focus in sort of the coastal resilience, and in that way, working with the port, students will have the opportunity to do internships prior to graduation. They will also, as part of our program, they will engage in a 5 semester credit hour course on project management, which we think is very distinctive, as well as very much helps students launch themselves into their respective careers. It is, in our estimation, a solid curriculum. We have designed it so that students are prepared to enter the workforce and succeed. And for details, I would lean on L.D. Chin, our Associate Dean, to give more Associate Dean and Director of Engineering to give more information.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is L.D. Chin. Like Dr. Phillips introduced earlier, our degree program has certain focus areas. In addition to that, the design of the curriculum will satisfy accreditation board's guideline, the Engineering Accreditation Commission, the ABET accreditation. And our previous 2 degree programs, mechanical and electrical engineering degree programs, are ABET accredited. So we will satisfy accreditation requirements, and we will also we follow the guidelines of the tuning document, tuning of civil engineering. So looking into 2+2 transfer students, and we support 60 by 30 with certificate programs. So it's a relatively unique program, and it will complement other engineering programs in the region as well as in the state.
Dr. Sanford?
Yes, I would just want to reiterate how happy we are to be here. This has been a multi-year process. We always take the proposal of new degree programs very seriously at A&M Corpus Christi, and work very closely with our system office and with the coordinating board staff, which Dr. Peebles, I just want you to know what a pleasure it's been to work with Kyla. I know she's not here today, but she has been fantastic, and I've enjoyed that interaction with her. I do want to point out a few things that are on the summary document that I'm sure Kyla put together and did a very nice job doing that. But a few things I think are pretty neat that we haven't heard yet from my colleagues, and that our students will have access to MBA courses, or these undergraduate students. So at the end, in their 4th year, which they will be able to complete in 4 years, we're offering classes in the summer so that they can, they will have access to those MBA courses in that 4th year. So they could begin an MBA if that is something they would like to do. We have many 3+2, 4+1 type programs on our campus, particularly in science and engineering. Also, a partnership opportunity we have with Kingsville. We've been in contact with them. I imagine you're wondering about that. We are working with them to offer classes that both of our students can take. They would be online, and there would be some CBE opportunities there. And then finally, I just want to reiterate the local demand. You heard Dr. Peebles speak to the national and state demand from the Department of Labor. Locally, our city employers, particularly the port and our many petroleum companies, are very interested. They ask our president constantly about these degrees and when we will have them. We have received a city grant that I think you all can see in the budget documents for both of the engineering degrees that you'll hear about today. This one was 1.3 million from the city. So I just wanted to reiterate those points and thank you again for this opportunity to be before you all today.
Well, thank you all, the three of you, for being here. Being from the Valley in South Texas, I've actually visited your nice campus, so I'm very familiar with the Texas A&M Corpus Christi Islanders. And so thank you for the good work that you do and the proposal. So is there any questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Commissioner?
We have data in our agenda books regarding institutional graduation completion rates. Do you know the 3 engineering programs that you now have, how long have those been in place?
We have 2 engineering degree programs. Mechanical engineering started 2009,
Okay.
and then electrical engineering degree program 2016. And then we have mechanical engineering technology program. So that are the 3 engineering/engineering tech program.
The one that was started in 2012, that's 7 years ago. Can you tell me what your 6-year graduation rate for that program has been?
The 6-year graduation rate is about the last we did the look somewhere in the 36%. I don't have the exact numbers, but
Yeah, that's my point. We've got to improve these completion rates in these programs. We're proliferating engineering programs, but their efficiency and effectiveness in terms of graduating students in engineering the numbers are disappointing. We've got to do better.
certainly we are aware of that, and some effort we're looking into is looking into more of the summer bridging program, so we can keep students instead of students transfer to other school or change their degree plan,
Majors, yeah.
and that will count to that 6-year graduation rate.
I would add to that we, in addition to sort of the summer bridge, what we're finding, and you wouldn't be surprised, that many of our students come in not prepared to take the math courses that would allow them to succeed in engineering. So we have actually redesigned and increased our support for supplemental instruction and tutoring so that we can help students get the mathematical skills they need to progress and therefore finish the degrees.
We're going to need to do more of that sort of work for engineering students, STEM majors.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion from the committee?
Just one other comment.
Williams?
I think a plus for the program also is the project management piece. A lot of engineers graduate and they have no idea about the project management role in actually getting a job, and so that's going to make them employable really quickly. So.
Thank you. Yes, that's our observation. So we introduced that project management justification so students will know keep on time, on budget, and with deliverables. Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, a second. Second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. So congratulations on that. You don't have to go too far. We'd like for you to stay for the next item. Agenda item 5C2 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the request from Texas A&M University Corpus Christi for a Bachelor of Science degree with a major in industrial engineering. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. This is also a face-to-face program that would offer concentrations in human factors and supply chain engineering as well, and would also, like the other degree, also provide for folks to pick up a certificate along the way in either autonomous mobility or, again, the unmanned aircraft systems certificate. It will allow for the use of competency-based pedagogy in this program. And particularly in this program, and I think, and I assume that this is probably true of the other program as well that you just alluded to a little bit, is that one of the things that was pointed out in this is that it would have an emphasis on recruiting transfer students as well as the sort of so-called native students, if you will, and then helping to provide the STEM pathway programs for middle and high schools. As this commissioner pointed out, this has long been a concern of ours that we're offering programs for which there are simply not enough students that are well prepared for it, and so how do we get them up to speed? So, so we appreciate the work that's being done on that and look for some more, in fact. This is another area of engineering where there's clearly a demonstrated workforce need. The projections are about the same, close to 10% over the next decade, and that we are not producing enough engineers to meet it. And this also has some contingencies or conditions attached to it, and that is that they will need to hire 4 core faculty, 1 in each year beginning in year 2. So again, as enrollment ramps up and increases, they will need to increase their faculty as well.
Very good. Would the panel like to comment on this degree program?
Similar to our civil engineering proposal, this has come about because of the work we have done with the city and the port, and where they are requesting that we help prepare a workforce for the city. As you know, the port is expanding. There's a new bridge going in, and they simply don't have the educated workforce that they would like. And so in our conversations with the city and with the various companies that are out of the port, and with Del Mar College, we see that this is a program that is very much needed. We have Del Mar College, the community college in our area, is preparing students to do more of the technical work, and they're saying, well, their students do want a bachelor's degree, and so we become that pathway for those students that have had the technical training at Del Mar to come and get a bachelor's degree and improve their quality of life, which happens when they would receive a bachelor's degree. So we are grateful that the city and the port have reached out to us and asked us to partner with them to improve the workforce in the area.
I may just add that the port of Corpus Christi, as you may know now, is the 4th largest port in the nation by tonnage. And then during the season, when there are export, they show the truck just piling out on the highway. So there is a part of incentive for us looking into, for instance, autonomous and connected vehicles, how to move the trucks through scheduling and so forth. So there's a really supply chain engineering side, and we will focus on. And also we look into autonomous mobility, what in the event like Harvey, God forbid, like Harvey hit us, we need to have a massive evacuation, how we perform that. So there's traffic engineering, industrial engineering, civil engineering, mechanical, electrical will work together to look into autonomous mobility in emergency situations, for instance. And thank you for Dr. Peebles. We also have a summer program we just started this year. The students, this is a pilot, the students went through a summer program will earn 2 credit hours of Intro to Engineering credits if they chose to attend our university. And the first pilot, we have a small number, 12 students passing through, and they have the same outcome, learning outcomes as our Intro to Engineering class. 11 out of 12 elect to have that. And they went through rigorous assessments and earn, if they want to do the 2 credit hours. So we will be expanding that program in the future.
Well, Dr. Chen, that's great. I think Commissioner and I both agree on that. I'm seeing smiling over there from our previous discussion about going through the summer. So that's excellent. Dr. Sanford.
I just want to acknowledge the commissioner's comments about the 6-year graduation degrees, and just let you know that time to degree is a conversation we have a lot, and it's something we're very committed to improving upon. And we also, we have some commitments that are really important to us, and I know they're important to you all as well, and that is a commitment to graduate Hispanic engineers. And we are an HSI, and we take that very seriously. And so I just want to reiterate that. We're also very committed to providing resources, which Dr. Peebles discussed, and that includes faculty and facilities. And so just know, again, this is something we've been working on for years, and we're ready to put our money where our mouths are on this.
Okay. Does the committee have any questions, any discussion, comments?
A question.
Ms. Williams, yes. Mhm.
With the local industry, are you all looking at any type of internship arrangements for actually college credits, or having some of the local folks teach and then, get credit for that?
Yes, we don't have, say, per se, internship for credits. So the only program we have that internship for credits is in our geographic information science, geospatial survey, systems engineering side. But for engineering, we'll be looking into working with local industries. For instance, there is two major investments lately. One is on petroleum downstream ethylene plant. So we'll be working on with the leadership there to look into how to create internship program for our students working there. The other one is electric furnace for steel processing. So again, is in the planning stage through our economic development company, regional economic development company. We will be engaged in discussions on the track in our elective, so students can work and also work on the internship program there.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Any other comments, discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Just on the, back on the 6-year graduation rate, do we have any data on, in engineering programs of similar size universities, and what the 6-year graduation rate is as a percentage?
I've mentioned before at board meetings, we do not calculate six-year graduation rates by discipline. And there are reasons that we don't. I think part of it was mentioned earlier that people frequently change their major when they come in, and there's so many things that go into that. We do them across the institution. I'm pleased to hear they are actually calculating those. I do know some of what's probably happened in some of those programs, people come in and regardless of the rigor of the program, they may decide they want to major, say, in economics. It's hard to know that. But we would almost have to track backwards. Wouldn't be the typical, and we could do that and then begin to look at why some of the differences are there, even including some of the characteristics they brought in to college to begin with. But we've not done that historically because the classical cohort way of calculating graduation rates that are used nationally don't work that well.
Commissioner?
Well, one of the curious things about STEM fields, and this is a data point I remember first reading about 15 years ago, is that students who declare a STEM major their freshman year graduate at higher rates than students who declare any other major, but they don't graduate in STEM.
Exactly.
So that suggests that you're getting the best students, but they're not well enough prepared to do rigorous work in STEM fields like these engineering programs. So that's something that we're concerned about.
Yeah, because I would have thought what you said before, that just by the nature of the subject matter, that those students that even want to give it a go would be at the upper end.
Yeah, they're probably the best students that come to any given university, but they typically don't graduate in STEM areas.
Yeah, I guess where I was headed is if it costs $3 million a year to introduce this program, and the graduation rate is a lower percentage, then I just want to make sure that students get the most bang for their buck, and that the state in general is applying not overpopulating certain programs or not, in order to get the most value, because if they're graduating other fields, that's good. What we don't want is them taking on student debt and then not graduating,
Right.
And let me add to
especially in
that,
these areas.
the staff do take into account the graduates. When you're talking about looking across programs, they do take into account the number of graduates produced statewide. So it's not the same thing as an efficiency measure, which graduation rate really is. But they do take into account, what number are we producing? They take into it, they do look, frankly, I don't know if institutions are aware of this, but staff look at what they thought their student numbers would be in terms of enrollments, in terms of evaluating other programs that come through, is how good is Corpus Christi at saying how many people will really enroll in a program or not, and sort of saying, okay, I don't know what theirs are, but saying, okay, well, they tend to overstate. They're very optimistic, or they may understate, and sometimes they're very good, but those are all elements that are taken into account as well, and that we, because they are expensive, and this is one reason why see a bachelor's program coming to the board, because it's in engineering, because of those factors you're talking about, because when the board decided they didn't need to see bachelor's programs, except when the cost was a certain point, we kept engineering programs there because of all these factors you're talking about, because that they need some special attention because of the cost to the state overall.
Okay, any further discussion on the agenda item?
Well, it's great that A&M Corpus Christi is being so responsive to the needs of your community. Well, that's one of our top priorities. That among the three agencies, the two other state agencies with which we work very closely, I was also very pleased to see that both these programs build on some of your distinctive academic and research strengths. So.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams. A second? Second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. So thank you all for making the trip to Austin to our committee meeting from the sparkling city by the sea, Corpus Christi.
Yes, thank you.
Anytime.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next, we move on to agenda item 5C4, which is, we're not moving too far from the Texas A&M system. We've got Texas A&M University and Texas A&M University at Galveston requesting a Doctor of Philosophy PhD degree with a major in Marine and Coastal Management and Science. I would like. Go ahead.
Pardon me, but I think
Oh,
we're
did I
skipping
miss-
VC3.
Did I do three?
5C3.
Yes, Kingsville. That's what I meant by Kingsville. Okay, sorry.
There you go, yeah.
Let me invite up to, thank you, Rex, Dr. George Rasmussen, who's the provost. Is he here? Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs of Texas A&M University in Kingsville, from Kingsville. Dr. Mohammed Alam is the Dean and Professor of College of Engineering. Please come forward. Dr. Larry Peel is the Department Chair and Professor of the Department of Mechanical and Industrial Engineering at Texas A&M Kingsville. And Dr. Scott Smith, who's the Chair and Professor of the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. So welcome, gentlemen. And so this is consideration 5C3 of the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the request for Texas A&M University, Kingsville, I got the Texas A&M part right, for a master's of MS degree with a major in mechatronics engineering. So I know we're going to have some questions on that. Because when I first saw it, I did. Okay, Dr. Peebles, now we're ready.
All right. So, as I said, this is a proposal for a Master of Science degree in Mechatronics Engineering. This also is reflective of a trend that I've noticed over the particularly over the last couple of years, of degree programs coming forward that actually are combinations of other more traditional degree programs, and you'll see another one in a moment. But this one is really a combination of mechanical, electrical, and computer science engineering that combines those three things with a specific application to engineering and process industries which are, of course, very prevalent in that part of the state. So this is another one of those where there's has been a workforce need established. Part of the issue with looking at to answer some of Mr. Wilson's questions about this, part of the issue with looking at programs that are really new, in a sense, is that there is no established employment pattern for those. But there are established employment patterns for all of these other fields of engineering that this combines, and there is a lot of evidence out there to suggest that this is a growing field. We actually have in the state a number of mechatronics technology programs at the associate of applied science level. So this is clearly becoming a part of the academy, so to speak. So there has been a workforce need established for this, and as with other programs that we've looked at today, there is also some contingencies placed on them to hire a core faculty member to start in the spring of 2020 as this program gets ramped up, and also an additional core faculty member in the spring of 2022 when they've gotten a couple of years out and have ramped up their enrollment as well. So.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Peebles. Dr. Alam, I welcome. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
I serve as the Dean of Engineering at Texas A&M Kingsville. So regarding this program, what we have done, I have an industrial advisory board for the college where people at the top management level from different industries from the region as well as from the state, they serve in that board. And the request mainly came from the Dean's Leadership Board members. They were asking for engineers who have interdisciplinary background. So in addition to the needs for engineers with electrical, mechanical, chemical, and other disciplines, they're looking for engineers who knows about robotics, but at the same time, they know a little bit about hardware, a little bit about the software that are needed in order to satisfy the emerging needs of the latest types of industries. So this is an interdisciplinary master's program that involves expertise from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and computer science. So our chair for electrical engineering and computer science, as well as for mechanical engineering, they collaborated very well with our Dean's Leadership Board members to come up with this proposal. We believe that students who graduate from this program will be able to serve the needs that involves applications of robotics, as well as hardware and software development associated with this type of discipline. A few minutes ago, I heard a good amount of discussion on the graduation rate, so I would like to comment on that. The 6-year graduation rate for engineering students in our campus is about 47%, and our campus 6-year graduation rate is about 37%. So engineering actually has the highest 6-year graduation rate in Tamok, Kingsville. So with that, I would probably invite Dr. Larry Peel, who was heavily involved with the development of the program, to give you a little bit more details.
Thank you. I'm very interested in this program for personal reasons, for research as well as for other. My background is actually not in the mechatronics area, but I've been involved with 3D printers of various types recently, and CNC machines and others. And I would guess that many of you this morning, maybe you had a vehicle that had an automatic door that opened or closed. All these things involve both mechanical systems and electrical systems and control. And so what we find is many students, if mechanical, they're afraid of the electrical part. Electrical students are afraid of the mechanical part. So by combining these, we're producing graduates that'll be better prepared for this, you might call automation needs we have, or the needs for advanced manufacturing. Also, we already have faculty on staff in mechanical engineering and electrical that already have experience with the robotics or the controls area in combining this. And so by creating this new master's, then we can utilize their experience and then supplement that with other faculty because of the growing need and the growing demand. the last thing I would point out that we're hoping that this can spill over eventually into our undergraduate program, and we're trying to, right now, our undergraduate program in mechanical engineering and our new undergraduate program in industrial engineering that was just approved are looking to see how they can include mechatronics courses in those. Thank you.
So, thank you for having us here. I'm pretty new to the campus. I just moved here from North Dakota State University about a month and a half ago. So I wasn't involved in writing the initial proposal. However, I do have some experience in mechatronics. When I was at a previous university in Missouri-Rolla, I ran a summer program for research experiences for undergraduates, supervised or funded by the National Science Foundation for micromechatronics, which was a collaboration between electrical engineering and mechanical engineering. And as Larry said, the mechanical engineering students didn't really want to do anything at all with the electrical engineering part and vice versa. So I found it very good to have students that would know both aspects of some electrical and mechanical engineering. And I think that would be very, very valuable. And I look forward to working with the mechanical engineering department on this new proposed degree program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Smith and Dr. Peel as well, Dr. Alam. Do we have any questions or comments for the panel? Ms. Williams?
Just one comment. I'm a mechanical engineer, and you're absolutely right. We have nothing to do with electrical, so good luck.
I think the committee and those listening online and those here have got a good understanding or a better understanding of what mechatronics is and how the programs work and how the combination. I like your analogy about the car door, Dr. Peel, because that really really makes sense in the real world, right? Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, it says that it's the first degree of this type offered in the state. Why do you assume that is the case?
In looking at this, researching it, I mean, obviously there's robotics programs. This is the first with the mechatronics title, and so I'm not saying there's not other robotics programs, or we aren't saying, but it's the first with this, and so. And the first mechatronics master's program, as far as we can tell. There might be others, but as far as we're able to do with our research. And so we're trying to establish this as a program of its own, and not just kind of a specialization. But as far as we can tell, that's the first one in the state.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Peebles?
We do try to verify those claims. I don't know how to put this delicately, but institutions are sometimes want to exaggerate that they may be the first in the nation or in the state to offer something, and so we do verify that it's not just simply a new title.
We're not talking about sports, right?
Right, right, exactly.
Because out-of-state people come in here to do that. Try to do that. I see billboards,
It's not,
Dr. Peebles.
old wine in a new bottle, so to speak. So we do try to verify that and actually look at the other degrees that are offered in the state and what they consist of, and really do try to verify that if we're going to say and make the statement to the board that it really is the first in the state, that we verified that. And as best we can tell, there are other programs that touch on some of these areas, of course, but as far as we can tell, it really is the first in the state to have this particular combination of those three fields at this level.
I mean, it seems like the future is in this area, and so it's great. I was just surprised that others haven't jumped on to date.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation for, Dr. Peel, you want to say something?
Sorry, our intent was not just, the intent wasn't to be the first. Our intent was just to provide a needed field. So we knew there's others out there. So that's our intent, is to provide the needed education, and the field and need was there. Whether we're first or not, I don't think we care about that.
Right. Well, I like the point that Dr. Lom brought up about, I know several of our board members here serve on advisory councils at universities, whether community colleges or university levels, but I think that's very important to be, as the commissioner said, meeting a need for your community is important, and understanding the experts in the field and what the needs are. So I think we can't underestimate the roles of advisory councils and advisory boards at the higher education level. So we keep in good contact with the citizens, right, of
Yes,
Texas.
exactly.
So that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that. Do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation for the Texas A&M University Kingsville for a Master of Science MS degree in the major of Mechatronics Engineering?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Anwar. A second? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Williams? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Congratulations. I'm being from South Texas, I must say, I've been to your campus. You have a great, nice campus. Y'all are doing great work at Texas A&M Kingsville. Keep it up. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Okay, we are moving on to agenda item 5C4 now, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation of Texas A&M University and Texas A&M University at Galveston for a Doctor of Philosophy PhD degree with a major in Marine and Coastal Management and Science. We have some representatives from Texas A&M University, Texas A&M University at Galveston here with us today. Dr. Wesley Highfield, Associate Professor and Program Coordinator of the proposed PhD program in the MCMS, and Dr. Can you pronounce your first name, please? Keong?
Yes.
Keong Park. Okay, good. Professor and Head Department of Marine Sciences. I will preface this a little bit. Your president is, I grew up with him. We were neighbors. He's an astronaut. He's now the president, Mike Fossum, and we named a school after him in my hometown, McAllen. So Mike and I are very close friends, and he is now the president of your university. So y'all are I haven't been there yet, but I know all the work, the great work that's going on right now at your university. So we're happy that you're here. We're going to hear the presentation first by Dr. Peebles, and then we'll have you have a few remarks of what's going on with the program. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So this is a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Marine and Coastal Management and Science. In some respects, it's a typical doctoral program in that it's going to require 90 semester credit hours beyond the bachelor's degree, 60 semester credit hours beyond the master's degree. But it is a cooperative effort between the two campuses in College Station and Galveston. Students will be able to take courses in both of those places toward this degree as it fits their schedule and as they're offered, I assume. So there is a workforce demand for this area. Again, this is one of those that's a little bit difficult to pinpoint, but there is projected annual openings of just a little over 24,000 nationally and over 2,300 in Texas for people with this kind of training. So we believe that there is a workforce demand for this that's been established, and this is something that students will be able to find gainful employment in. One of the things that I am pleased about, and I think the commissioner will be pleased as well about this, is that their assistantship and fellowship funding will be about $34,000 per year. Now, that includes about $10,000 in tuition and fees, but that's about a $24,000, $25,000 stipend, which is certainly a step in the right direction in terms of adequate funding for graduate students. There are other programs in Texas that have this kind of designation of marine science and so forth, but this is one of the few in the country, in fact, that has a policy focus attached to it. And in fact, we could only find 5 of those nationally, and there are no programs in Texas that currently have the kind of policy focus that this particular program offers, and I'm sure our gentleman here will be able to speak to that issue a little bit more. So,
Thank you, Dr. Peebles. Dr. Park, would you like to say a few words?
Okay, first, thank you very much to Dr. Peebles for very nicely summarizing our proposal. And thanks to the coordinating board and the Committee on the Academic and Workforce Success in particular for considering our proposal for a PhD degree program in Marine and Coastal Management and Science. As the name indicates, this is a unique program that will offer a policy-focused, scientifically grounded doctoral program to address the human and social infrastructure development in coastal environments. We think this is a very nice mix of social and natural science. As while this program focuses on management and policy-related topics in coastal environments, which is basically social science, it also explicitly recognizes and thus includes in its curriculum the importance of the underlying natural science. So for more details, I will defer it to Dr. Wes Seifeld, who is going to serve as the program coordinator if this proposal is to be approved.
Welcome, Dr. Highfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Keon. Thank you, Dr. Peebles. Thank you, the rest of the committee. And thank you, Dr. Nylos, for shepherding us through this process. It's been, I think, like many here, a multi-year process, and she's really been our proposal Sherpa, if you will, along the way. Keon and Dr. Peebles made a very good, succinct, I think, description of the program. It is very interdisciplinary, and that is our goal. We do believe, I think the numbers show that there is workforce demand for this. Anecdotally, I feel like I know there is workforce demand for this. And I think we have to be careful not to pigeonhole that and say that we're just going to train some more academics. For example, I spoke with somebody in the reinsurance agency just yesterday. And that would be one area where, these people might end up. Ironically, as we sit here right now, there's a tropical storm dumping 10, 12 inches of rain over my house. These graduates would be well positioned to come in after that and look at impacts and management and policy and look at the realities of politics around making those decisions. So those are two real quick examples along the way. I'd be happy to continue to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Does the committee have or the staff, any questions for the panel? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams, a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations, and thank you for being here. Okay, take care. Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 5C5, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the request from Texas Tech University Health Science Center, El Paso, for a Doctor of Dental Medicine DMD degree with a major in dental medicine. We invite some guests from Texas Tech University Health Science Center at El Paso to come forward. Dr. Richard Black is the Rick and Ginger Francis Endowed Dean of the Woody L. Hunt School of Dental Medicine. Dr. Wendy Woodell is a Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs of the Woody L. Hunt School of Dental Medicine. And Dr. Paul Ogden, who's Provost, Vice President for Academic Affairs. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Dr. Peebles will present the proposal synopsis.
So this proposed Doctor of Dental Medicine would establish only the 4th general dentistry program in the state of Texas and the first in West Texas, and the other 3 being much further east than this. There is clearly a demonstrated workforce demand for this. This is one of those where we've sort of followed demand for this along the way, as a lot of other doctoral proposals are. This has also been a long journey to get here. And when we first started with this, in some parts of the state, it was not clear that there was a demand for more general dentistry, but clearly a demand in West Texas for general dentistry. And one of the things that's sort of changed over time is that demand for general dentistry in the state as a whole has gone up. And it is now unclear that even with the addition of this school, that we will be just barely meeting the demand for general dentistry across the state, much less in West Texas, which has a much more acute demand for general dentistry there. So clearly there's a workforce demand established for this. The program itself will hire 41 additional faculty members in the first 5 years of the program. These may not all be full-time, by the way, but as these things go. But they do have a schedule for this for 13 in the first year, 10 in the second year, 9 in the third year, 5 in the fourth year, and 4 again in the fifth year as their program ramps up in enrollment and they increase their years of first and second and third and so on dental students. So.
Okay, any comments? Or first of all, I'd like, Dr. Black, can you please say a few words? Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Chairman Farias. We're delighted to be here, and we want to first of all thank the staff of the coordinating board for their guidance over the last few years as this journey has carried us forward to today. It's a milestone day for us. The first dental school in the state of Texas in almost 50 years. I would comment that when the University of Texas San Antonio Dental School was founded, there were approximately 10 to 11 million residents in Texas. Now there are almost 29 million. And so this is a school that Texas Tech has been very proud to support. It's a Western Texas school. We intend to try to solve some of the disparities of general dentists in the western part of the state. And we're well on our way to identifying the places that need help and improving the dental health, which is now really a part of overall health of citizens of western Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Woodall, did I say that right, Woodall?
Woodall.
Woodall, thank you.
So I am Dr. Wendy Woodall. I'm the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs. And we are very pleased with our curriculum that we feel like it has been positioned to address the needs in 2025 and beyond. So we've kept an eye towards assuring that our graduates can pay attention to the interprofessional workings. The mouth is a part of the rest of the body, and that they are able to work with the different professionals that deliver all total health care. An eye towards culture, teaching Spanish, teaching some of the early portions towards a public health degree like a community health certificate, engaging in research in the area in addition to certainly a strong diagnostic and technical skill set. We have embraced CAD/CAM, so speaking towards the prior divisions, we do know that it is moving more towards milling and imaging and 3D printing, and we are teaching those skill sets as well.
Great.
And I've been pleased to be a part of it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dr. Ogden, welcome.
Yes, I don't have a lot to add to what they've already said. There's a very acute need for dentists in the Western Texas region, particularly in El Paso and across the state. The only thing I would add to that is that the state of Texas has more than enough qualified applicants that get turned away from our dental schools every year. There are actually 100 students from the state of Texas that go outside the state of Texas to get their dental training because there aren't enough spots available for people to train in the state. The other thing I would add to what Dr. Woodall has said is that we are going to have a very hands-on community-based curriculum where they are going to be totally immersed in the community, but we also intend for them to get very advanced dental skills. We realize that many of these folks will not be going off for additional training and residencies and may have to see more complicated dental problems because of the lack of specialists in the area as well. And so we intend to train them fairly well in being able to do things that may be a bit more complicated than a general dentist would do. Thank you.
Okay. I'll say that being a healthcare professional myself, I take a look at this very carefully. The past president of the Texas Dental Association is from my hometown in McAllen, and also my high school, one of my best friends lives across the street as a dentist. So, and I've received letters from dental associations and dentists around the country. And I serve on another board with Woody Hunt, who is a past member of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. So I think y'all have done a fabulous job in your proposal and looking at the needs of West Texas. And so, thank you for all the work and the time that y'all put into it. And as Dr. Ogden says, I'm familiar with the application processes and the need of having healthcare professionals study and stay in our state to be able to meet the demands of our growing population. As Dr. Black had pointed out, Texas, has grown so much from 10 million now to 20 plus. So thank you all for all the hard work to doing that and providing an opportunity. for students to continue to study in our state and be able to practice in our state dental medicine, to be able to provide the citizens the dental care that we need. Commissioner?
Well, this proposal has been a long time coming, and we've been hearing about it for years, and we've been excited about it because it seems so necessary and seems so promising. I have a question. I read a study 4 or 5 years ago that pointed out that one of the biggest factors in poor performance among very young children, whether it's in K or the first primary grades, is poor dental care, and it affects their nutrition and so forth. I would expect that this was not a study about El Paso, but I would expect that given the demographic characteristics, economic characteristics of El Paso might well be a place where that is a very serious problem. And I was wondering if you had given any thought to dealing directly with that issue. Dental care for young children is a factor in their ability to perform well in school.
That certainly is an ongoing problem. We continue to attempt to address that. Certainly within the curriculum, we are dealing with patients of all ages from 3 to 6 months all the way up through, my mother was 92. It is a very important area to address, and there is a strong curriculum in pediatric. It is a competency-driven curriculum, and there are something like 9 of the competencies that they must prove in order to graduate are based in pediatrics.
Certainly, Commissioner, we would encourage people to understand that the main reason why children miss school in Texas is because of oral dental disease, not any other disease. And as you know, when you open a dental school, you open a very large community clinic that is positioned well in El Paso County. We'll expect our students to be training in the county as well as teaching in the county as far as nutrition and good oral health. And so certainly it is at the top of our mind and something that needs to be corrected.
And I might add to that it is an acute problem in El Paso and El Paso County. I believe half the residents of the county have never seen a dentist. And the number one reason for OR time in our children's hospital is dental extractions. Which it shouldn't be. I mean, if we're spending time pulling teeth on children, they certainly cannot be doing well in school.
That's very good to hear. Thank
Yes, it is, and it's a good proposal. Thank you all. First of all, I want to ask questions from our committee. Yes, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, can you elaborate further on, I agree with the idea of the local clinic being part of the process. Do you have the funding in place for that, or what's your plan as far as opening
Yes,
a local
sir.
clinic? Because I know the equipment costs.
Yes, it is a daunting task to start up a professional school, especially a dental school. That's the most expensive school you can start on any campus in any university. We have tremendous support and have had from Texas Tech University to be committed to this, their Board of Regents, so that this large clinic to the tune of maybe $20 million can be built, 130 chairs, lights, equipment, stools, instrumentation. Dr. Woodall has crafted the curriculum so that our students are in that clinic approximately 6 weeks after they get to school, hands-on with patients as soon as they're qualified to do so. We have also been blessed with tremendous community support to the tune of $31 million already from 2 foundations in El Paso. And so we are well on our way to not only our training activity and our academic activity, but also our public clinic. And we expect to open that at the same time that the students matriculate. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
I mean, I think it's a big benefit for the community because
Oh, definitely.
in schools that have, medical programs or whether it's pharmacy or whatever, if they have the impact on the local community is huge if you have a clinic connected to it.
Oh, yeah, and I just think, yeah, for the clinic and a public health standpoint, which is like my background, and doing, health fairs and things like that, and I think it's just going to be a tremendous asset to the community and all of West Texas. And so I, again, compliment you all on the proposal. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion, please, to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
By Mr. Wilson, seconded by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations, and thank you for being here. Okay, so let's move on to a next agenda item, which is Agenda Item 5C6, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the request from the University of Houston for a Master of Science MS degree with a major in Engineering Data Science. We welcome Dr. Andrea Prosperity. Thank you. Thank you for helping with that pronunciation. Welcome, Dr. Prosperity. And I'm going to have Dr. Peebles do the proposal first summary, and then we'll hear from the doctor. Thank you.
So this proposal is a Master of Science in Engineering Data Science, and again, this is one of those that will combine two traditional fields into a sort of interdisciplinary degree program, if you will, but it combines both engineering with a big data foundation. And so engineers will be trained to use big data in their work, in analyzing problems and solving those problems, and so forth. This is another one of those things where it's somewhat difficult to predict workforce demand, but there is a national average of at least 20,000 plus related job openings in this field as well, and the Texas Workforce Commission indicates an average of 1,732 annual job openings in this field. So again, this is one of those fields that is growing in recognition, but also growing in demand as well. They will also have a hiring schedule. They will need to hire 2 additional faculty members, but those will be in year 3 of the program, once again, after they have sort of ramped up the program and developed enrollment and so forth. So, turn it over to.
Thank you, Dr. Peebles. Dr. Prosperity, would you like to say a few words, please?
Thank you, Dr. Peebles, and also I'd like to express our gratitude to Dr. Audra Partridge for her help with finalizing the small, aspects of this proposal. So the Austin actually has more engineers who have data science competencies than Houston. Austin has about 1,000 and Houston has about 700. To give you an idea of the demand, just Calandra Phillips is planning to hire about 380 data science savvy, not necessarily professionals, but savvy engineers in the next year or 2. So the demand is everywhere, and data science is like mathematics and English. You don't need to be a mathematician to use mathematics. You don't need to be a professional writer to need English. And data science is a discipline of that sort. The jobs of the future and even of the present require some competence of data science. They do not require an extreme specialization in data science. So it is in recognition of this fact that what we plan to do is to impart some foundational basis in data science to people who have already an engineering degree, and to combine this with further deepening of their engineering expertise. So this is the structure of the program. And it relies on, mostly for now, on existing courses, which are rather undersubscribed, so they can accommodate a few more students. And then, as Dr. Peebles said, we are going to hire other instructors as the program matures.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion of approval of the staff recommendation? Moved by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 5C7, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the request for the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD degree with a major in health sciences. At this time, I would like to invite up Dr. David Sheldedy, Professor and Dean, School of Health Professions, Dr. David Weiss, who's the Professor and Dean of the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, and Dr. Jacqueline Lee Mook, who is the Vice President for Academic Faculty and Student Affairs. Thank you all for being here, and before I ask you for a few comments, I'm going to have Dr. Peebles present the proposal. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So this is a Doctor of Philosophy degree in health science. This kind of program is aimed at the allied health sciences, which is encompasses everything in health science outside of medicine and nursing as a general rule, but there is certainly a demand for people to be trained in those areas, both in terms of faculty members for the future. As all of those underlying allied health programs grow, the need for faculty to teach in those programs will grow as well. Research in those areas is an ongoing necessity as well, as those programs become particularly much more integrated with other health sciences and how they operate in terms of medical care itself. So we think that this is a very important program to advance allied health, both in terms of research and faculty members as well, and in the myriad of other jobs that are available to folks with this kind of training. The program itself will be a hybrid format in terms of both online and face-to-face education, 68 semester credit hours beyond a master's degree. TWC and the BLS have both predicted that over the next decade, there will be more demand for this than we will be able to produce graduates for. So there's clearly a health or a workforce demand has been established for this. And this is one of those programs where the institution will also utilize existing faculty as well to make this work. So they're going to draw a lot on their existing faculty to begin the program, and they've identified 15 core faculty and 16 support faculty to be dedicated to this program, which is an excellent use of existing resources. And there will be in it, their student financial assistant aligns with their current PhD programs in health sciences, so it will be similar to those as well, in that they generally do not offer financial assistance because these programs are professional programs by and large that are designed at people already working in the field. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Dr. Peebles. Dr. Sheldedy, welcome.
The Higher Education Board. I hope you all could hear that first bit. Is that okay?
Good, yes, yes.
But I want to also thank the extraordinarily professional staff of the Higher Ed Board. They've been very rigorous and very careful and asked all the right questions and helped us put together a much better proposal. So I appreciate that. Now, this particular program will be a collaboration at UT Health between the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and the School of Health Professions. The School of Health Professions currently offers 12 different degrees and certificates, 6 of them at the graduate level, 2 of them at the professional doctorate level, and those 2 programs will complement this particular program. The graduate school offers 18 different degrees and certificates, and 7 of which terminate in the award of the PhD. Now, the primary purpose of this program is to prepare future allied health faculty, researchers, and leaders. The program will also offer an opportunity for students with varying allied health backgrounds to seek advanced allied health education. As noted, the program would be offered in distance and hybrid format, and the intent is to open this program to students across the state of Texas and elsewhere because there's a very big need for the development of faculty in allied health. Allied health is quite a large body of workforce in terms of healthcare providers and healthcare support folks. Approximately 8 million in the United States, so that's a pretty big number. And most allied health folks are trained in colleges and universities. And you've got to have faculty to train them. And there is very difficult to find doctorally prepared faculty, and hopefully this will help with that particular issue. The main other message is that we are focusing on preparing researchers and teachers. So there's a strong research component. There's a big need for outcomes research, in particular related to allied health. They provide a very large number of services, and there needs to be additional support in terms of what works, what doesn't work, and at what cost. And so that would kind of be our research focus. The program's intended to be interprofessional and leverage all of the opportunities we have across the medical center, including the School of Nursing and the Graduate School. So again, thank you all very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Sidley. Dr. Weiss, next, please. Comments?
Just 2 points I would make as to why I love this program and want to see it part of UT Health San Antonio. The first has to do with the workforce component. We have several PhD programs, and the challenge has been discussed numerous times here this morning. One that we embrace and love is helping these students figure out what they want to do when they leave, help them figure out what it is, and then help them get there. And that's quite a challenge. It's also very hard to figure out what the workforce is because the options are so many. And what's great about this program is there's a huge demand. It's undeniable. The second point that I really love about this is being a scientist myself. While I would certainly defend to the death the importance of basic science and understanding mechanisms of disease, it sometimes takes quite a while to translate that into healthcare. But the types of research that these investigators will do have a more immediate impact on healthcare. And I look forward to seeing their doctoral work here and when they leave and land their jobs.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Weiss. Dr. Jacqueline, can you pronounce your last name?
Mock.
Mock. Okay, I wanted to make sure.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mock, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board, Mr. Commissioner. Again, I want to reiterate our grateful appreciation to all of the coordinating board staff who have been superb in helping us navigate this proposal forward to your presentation. I've got 2 superb deans that I work with very closely, so there's not a whole lot more that I can add on behalf of President Henrich. But suffice it to say, within our academic health centers, we've been really grateful already for the approval of 2 intellectually blended PhD programs. One is our PhD in Nursing Science. That is a collaboration with our Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences and our School of Nursing. The second one that you have approved for us is a PhD in Translational Science, which again is in our Graduate School of Biomedical Science, and in that particular case is a joint degree that we offer with UT Austin and UTSA. In both cases, it's a blending of the sciences specifically within the professions of the healthcare arenas, along with the rigor of the basic sciences. And so that is what we see here in really being able to promote in a PhD in health sciences. So thank you for the consideration of this proposal, and we stand ready to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. I'm being from South Texas, too, San Antonio a lot. My parents lived there, so I'm very familiar and visited your health science center. An outstanding job, great leadership, and this, I think, program would just blend in extremely well with what's happening there, so keep up the good work. Any comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
I have a quick question. I noticed
Yes,
on
Mr. Wilson.
the summary page where % of medical school students practicing primary care in Texas
Okay.
was 39% in 2013 and is now 21%. Do you have any
Primary care.
Any data on that fact? Because that's almost dropped by half in 5 years.
Well, I suspected that data is if not completely accurate, is probably fairly accurate. It shifts over time. As you know, we have an ongoing problem with primary care in the state of Texas and indeed in the country as a whole. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, quite frankly, there is a lot more money involved in specialty care than there is in primary care. Right. And at the rate at which students accumulate debt and so forth, particularly in medical school and then afterwards, but particularly in medical school, it is sometimes often much more attractive to go into specialty care than it is in primary care. And so, over time, both the legislature and the coordinating board have directed efforts at this. Our graduate medical education program is geared specifically to primary care and to those fields to try to provide ongoing support for hospitals and other avenues for residencies to incentivize them in some way to try to beef up the primary care pool.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, with the struggle too. But I was surprised by, in a 5-year period, it went from 39% to 21. That's huge fall off.
That's right, and we're aware of that. Being on the committee for a few years. I think the proposals you request, that in October we approved new medical schools, right?
Right.
And specifically, I know the University of Houston, working closely with them and their medical school, is going to target primary care physicians, and they're not the only ones. Another one that we've also approved, I know that the Sam Houston State DO program is also,
Right.
that's the target, and they're looking at expanding clerkships and residencies into their branch campuses because of the fact that there is a concern. But Dr. Peebles is right. Once somebody starts medical school or any professional school, you can say you're going to go in a certain area, but people change their minds. Sure. And we have a shortage of family physicians, primary care physicians in our state. And so I get the question a lot, wow, how did the coordinating board, you guys approved 3 new medical schools? But the fact of the matter is we have needs in the state. And Mr. Wilson, you've pointed out the big need. The primary care is going down, but yet our population's growing. We're 25 million. So we need to probably educate students. And I know that advisors around the state are letting students know that are pre-med that these are areas that are of need. But people choose different specialties for different reasons. And economics, and quite frankly, being a health provider myself, health insurance payments, Medicare and Medicaid are not going up, they're going down. And you don't get it reimbursed for a busy clinic or even a small independent clinic at the rates you used to 5-10 years ago. So people are making decisions, and that's the answer to that. I think I agree with Dr. Peebles' analysis and just hearing on what's going on in the state. But
I was just surprised by the
drop off.
5-year period. That's almost like the price of oil, right? You don't want to.
But that's a good observation. But we're aware of that, and the thing is, the schools. I think that's why these schools proposals that we've approved are working to meet those needs. Would you agree, Commissioner?
I agree, yes. Great, thank you.
Thank you for that observation. Do I have a motion? Oh, yeah, Dr. Peebles?
Just one quick comment to that. Yeah, that is a rather surprising drop, and so we're going to do a little checking into the number to make sure it really is that acute, so to speak. So, yeah.
Okay. If there are any comments or questions, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wilson. Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much.
We're moving on to agenda item 5D, which is consideration of adopting the certification advisory councils and the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the request from Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine for initial certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas. I'd like to invite up some guests that we have representing Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine. Robert Wingo is the chair-elect of the Board of Trustees of Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Don Pesca is the Dean and Chief Academic Officer for Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine, and John Hummer is President of Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks you for being here. Dr. Peebles will present the proposal.
So before we actually get into the discussion of the proposal itself, I thought I would preface that with a little bit of reminder about the regulation of institutions of higher education in Texas and how they relate to this particular proposal. So what we're going to focus on here is institutions other than public institutions or ICUD institutions. And of course, ICUD institutions are the independent colleges and universities of Texas, such as Rice, Baylor, Paul Quinn. There are about 27 of those, if I remember correctly. And for those institutions that are other than public institutions or ICUD institutions in Texas, we have three major mechanisms for regulating those. And those are certificates of authority, certificate of authorization, and also the state authorization reciprocity agreement, also known as SARA. And I'll actually start with the last one first. So the state authorization reciprocity agreement, or SARA, is something that 49 of the 50 states in this country have entered into. Only California has not signed on to it, and they may be, and I think they're in the process of doing so. They do not have a coordinating board or anything like it in the state anymore, and so their legislature had to create a statewide entity for them to be able to join SARA, which they have now done, so we expect that will happen. But the other 49 states are a part of it. And what SARA applies to are those institutions that do not have a physical presence in Texas and do not wish to have a physical presence in Texas. And a physical presence may be a campus, or as you will hear in a few minutes, in the case of the Burrell College of Medicine, the physical presence in that case would constitute essentially an office where students can go and check in, seek advice, and so forth. But so again, institutions that do not have a physical presence in Texas and do not wish to have a physical presence in Texas, and those institutions can be a member of SARA if they're in a state that is also a member of SARA. So there's sort of a two, or actually there's really more like a three-step process to this. The state itself has to become a member of NC SARA through its regional boards. In our case, it's the Southern Regional Education Board. And then institutions that are in a state that's a member of SARA can then also join SARA. And so those institutions then are allowed to offer 100% online programs in other SARA states. And what this has done, it has removed the requirement that every individual state seek authorization from every other state that they operate in or offer programs. And of course, the prevalence of online programs across state lines is pretty daunting. Several years ago when I was at Midland College and this became a big issue at the federal level, I asked, so how many states do we have students from? And it turned out that we had students in 46 states and 13 foreign countries. Yeah. And so this is something that everybody wrestles with, and SARA has helped solve that particular problem. And thereby saving states a lot of money and also a lot of time in seeking authorization from other states. But under SARA, institutions are allowed to offer up to 10 clinicals, internships, practicums, and in this case that we'll be discussing in a few moments, clerkships, per site. And there is no limit on the number of sites that an institution can have, but there is a limit on the number of students that you can have at a particular site, and that is at 10. And I should point out that this is something that applies not just to online programs, but to all programs that an institution in another state might offer. And SARA membership is renewable annually for institutions and biennially for the states. So Texas will be up for a renewal in October of this year, for example. Now, our other major mechanism for doing this is through a certificate of authority. And this is for institutions that wish to establish a physical presence in Texas. So they want to have a physical presence here, but they do not yet have accreditation from one of the board-approved creditors. So we have 13 board-approved creditors, including the 6 regional accrediting bodies in the country. The certificates of authority require an extensive review that include a site visit, and they are very akin to the kind of review that we do for doctoral programs. In fact, at least in one case, the review for a certificate of authority exceeds what we would do for a doctoral program, in that we also look at the financial capacity and status of the institution, which is something that we don't do with public institutions, assuming full faith and credit of the state behind them. Right? Right? And a certificate of authority is in effect for 2 years with a maximum at a time with a maximum of 8 years. The idea being that under a certificate of authority, institutions are pursuing accreditation with one of our board recognized accreditors. And in this case, Burrell has been pursuing accreditation with both the Higher Learning Commission, which is a regional accreditor, but also with COCA, which is the accreditor for schools of osteopathic medicine. And then at the end of the 8 years, by the way, if an institution has not achieved accreditation from one of those board-approved accreditors, then their authority to operate in the state ceases at that point. And by the way, we currently have 3 institutions in Texas that have a certificate of authority, only 2 of which are actually operating, and that is Medicine, which I mentioned earlier, and also the Southwest School of Art has a certificate of authority with us. So we have 3 institutions that actually have a certificate of authority right now, but only 2 of them are actually in operation and a going concern. So certificates of authorization are for those institutions that wish to establish a physical presence in Texas and then also have accreditation from a board-approved accreditor. So for example, with the Burrell College of Medicine, once they have achieved accreditation from the Higher Learning Commission, then they would be eligible for a certificate of authorization to operate in Texas. And certificates of authority have an annual compliance certification process that they have to go through, and we check on their status with their accrediting body. We check on the status with their state's equivalent to a coordinating board, and we also check on their financial status, usually by monitoring the federal monitoring they have for financial aid. And then if anything in the interim has been brought to our attention in terms of student complaints or anything else, then we will also look into that as well. And certificates of authorization are essentially good for the life of the accreditation cycle. So if you get a certificate of authorization and your accreditation is good for 6 years, then your certificate of authorization will be good for 6 years. But again, we have an annual compliance certification that comes with this, and we have the authority to investigate any problems that may arise and then revoke that certificate of authorization for CAWS, just as we could also revoke a certificate of authority for CAWS as well. So I also want to, I'll come back to this in a second. So as you know, what the Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine is seeking a certificate of authority for is really to establish the physical presence in El Paso County in terms of the office that I alluded to before, and they can give you some more details about that when their turn comes. But that is what has caused them to actually ask for the certificate of authority. They have what is termed as provisional approval with SARA through the New Mexico Department of Higher Education, I believe is the correct term for it. New Mexico's roughly equivalent to our state's coordinating board. And so they have approval with the SARA. And so in that sense, then they're already authorized to offer clerkships and or clinicals, ever how we want to term them, clerkships in Texas, at least but no more than 10 per site. And so when this came before the board before, there was some objection, if you will, raised, and the concerns really raised by Texas Tech Health Science Center in El Paso, and since concerns raised by other health science centers across the state of Texas regarding the impact that the ability of institutions outside of the state of Texas to offer clerkships inside the state of Texas would have on our in-state institutions' ability to offer clerkships and to be able to accommodate and provide for their students. This can be a problem for particularly third-year clerkships, which happen to be very close. Some, maybe even a fair number of fourth-year clerkships can be obtained both in-state and some go out of state for this as well. So in keeping with our own processes, again, a site visit was conducted. That information was presented to the Certification Advisory Council, and the Certification Advisory Council recommended approval of their certificate of authority. When it came before, as I said, there was some concerns about offering clerkships in the future. And so one of the things that was requested of both the Burrell College of Medicine and Texas Tech University Health Science Center in El Paso was to see if they could reach an agreement regarding the operation of the school in El Paso County. And you have behind your blue page for this particular item a copy of the signed memorandum of understanding between those two entities regarding El Paso County. And what I have for you here is a couple of slides that sort of lay out, hopefully, the general terms of that agreement without repeating all of the language in it. But once accredited, they need to maintain their accreditation by a board-approved creditor and maintain good standing with the New Mexico Higher Education Department. This was a condition that was agreed to actually at the Certification Advisory Council meeting, so that was already in effect. The Burrell College of Medicine may not pay for clerkships, which was a huge concern of people, understandably so, that an outside entity from Texas may be able to come into Texas and then pay hospitals and so forth for clerkships, which is something we do not allow our public institutions to do. And that was also a part of the original Certification Advisory Council's conditions placed on their approval. And then these are additional terms of agreement that have come about as a result of the signed MOU with the Paul Foster School of Medicine. And that should be School of Medicine. I can't believe I missed that. My apologies. And so beginning in 2019, they will have a sort of an annual conclave, if you will, to determine the size of the cohort of students that would be assigned to clerkships in El Paso County for the following year. So the idea would be that by December of the preceding year, that number would be mutually determined by those two entities that would begin in July of the following year. And at the request of the Paul Foster School of Medicine, and by the way, this would also cap their number of clerkships at 30 students per class. And so we're talking about third and fourth year of medical school. So that would be a maximum of 60 total for both of those. And then in keeping with a concern expressed by the Texas Tech Health Science Center about their plans for future expansion, then there's also a piece of this agreed to by the Burrell College of Medicine to also look at their future expansion plans, Paul Foster School of Medicine's future expansion plans, and then to provide whatever accommodation to those expansion plans that they need to provide as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peebles. Mr. Hummer, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah, press the red button.
Mr. Chairman,
There we go. Thank
members of the committee, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and we've really been looking forward to this opportunity to come to the CAWS meeting and then go on to the October board meeting after this. I just want to open up with a few comments, and we've submitted a lot of information, and we promise you we're not going to go through all the information details that we've sent you, and we're going to rather allow for more Q&A to where we can answer your specific questions, because we think the time will be better served for you. Following my comments, our chairman, Bob Wingo, will say a few comments, and our dean and chief academic officer, Dr. Pesca, will say a few words as well. First, we would like to thank the members, the staff of the coordinating board. Dr. Peebles, Dr. Silverman, Dr. Schuler in particular, have been excellent, very professional. We actually have been working together since before we opened our first matriculating class in 2016, when we were under NC Sarah, and discussing the dynamics of that and working very well together. Then through the transition of the Certificate of Authority, we came here well over a year ago. We sat down and we said, you know, what is the process? And they laid out the process. We went through step by step the requirements that you all have within your standards. And then the site visit team was extremely professional and extremely thorough. The time they spent at our campus, the time they spent in El Paso, in the healthcare facilities, the hospitals, and with the community, they were excellent, and we want to thank them for their professionalism. The one thing I would like to say in regards to the collaboration, what you see in the document, the MOU, actually originated before we even opened, on a handshake, if you will, and we've honored all of those same commitments that we had verbally with Dr. Lang and his team up into the MOU, and that was done during NC Sarah when we were allowed to come into the community. There was no prohibition against payment, and we could have engaged in payment of clerkships, as is the case in other parts of the country, and we said we were not going to do that, and we never did. And obviously we have kept that, and we encouraged it to be in writing from that aspect. We have 160 physicians, El Paso physicians, that are on our faculty, our clinical faculty, that take students, and that represents 10% of the entire medical community that's on our faculty, and Dr. Pesca can speak more to that here in a moment on that. The last thing I would like to say, just on a personal note, is I would encourage you to look at the aspect from the community, and Bob Wingo will speak to this as well. My family and I chose the borderland area of Las Cruces 20 years ago and made this our permanent home. I've been involved in different organizations, boards, both in El Paso and in Las Cruces, and it's hard for some folks that are outside of the area to understand the connectivity between our two communities. Border's 20 minutes away, but being involved in El Paso, also in the Las Cruces area, with many community leaders from El Paso, many leaders that are involved on the Texas Tech side of the healthcare issue. We work together on boards, and through one organization called the Borderplex Alliance, symbolically we took out an eraser, and we erased the national border between Ciudad Juarez and the state border between New Mexico and Texas. We're codependent communities. We have faculty and staff that live in El Paso. We have people that live in El Paso that work in Las Cruces. There's family connections between our two communities. And so when we enter into the development of this school, we look at the region and the benefit to the region. It's not a provincial type of situation in our corner of the world right there. And I would just encourage you to consider that when you look at this, and the contributory aspects, the contributions that we have already made, which we'll talk to a little bit more into the El Paso community, versus any more of a taking of resources. But what resources have we added to that as well? And we'd like to speak to that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Wingo. Thanks.
Mr. Wingo, welcome, Mr. Wingo. You are the chair-elect of the Board of Trustees, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, welcome.
And I'm also proud to say that I'm a former member of the Higher Ed Coordinating Board. So I know a few people that are still here from the days that I served, and it was an honor to be on this board and to work with the commissioner and others. David and I have certainly known each other for a number of years, but I think it's important to note that I have been involved with the Burrell School of Medicine prior to anything being established. Back in 2013, John Hummer
and company visited with myself and others who were on the Las Palmas del Sol Healthcare Board. We saw the need, we saw the value, and we saw the reason why we should be engaging in something of this nature. When you look at today, and you look at 40 of our students are from El Paso, 100 of our students at the Burrell School of Medicine are from Texas. This is an important opportunity for students to continue with medical education. I, for one, feel it's critically important. I look at the Paul Foster School of Medicine. I look at Woody Hunt. These are friends and associates of mine that I've known for a number of years and have had a major influence in what's happening in our marketplace. When John spoke of the Borderplex region, we are now at a point where we are really working very diligently to market the region as a whole. We're working in terms of what happens in not only El Paso, but Las Cruces and Ciudad Juarez, because rising tides will raise all boats. We feel it's critically important for all of us to engage, and many of us have engaged in multiple scenarios. Mayor DeMargo has given us a letter of support. The Las Palmas del Sol Healthcare Board has given us a memorandum and a resolution saying that they support our efforts 100%. And as we have talked about clerkships, many of the clerkships in El Paso are at Las Palmas del Sol as well as other healthcare institutions. David Huffstetler, who is really over El Paso and Austin, has visited the campus of the Burrell School of Medicine, and he was in favor of what we were working on and continues to support that. Don Carl, our current CEO of Las Palmas Medical Center, has a letter of support in place. So we feel that this is a critical opportunity for us to better serve our region, to better serve the state of Texas and New Mexico in the region, and to better serve our country in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Pesca, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me make just a couple of brief comments regarding workforce and the impact of the school. I found interesting the conversation with the people presented prior and the statistics. This is an osteopathic medical school. Historically, if you don't know, I was the dean at TCOM at UNT for 8 years prior to my going to Burrell. Historically, we are going to be graduating our first class this coming year, and they are searching for their residencies. I can say with almost assured certainty that in excess of 60% of our graduates will enter primary care. That is just the history of osteopathic medical schools, and we expect that to continue. The other comment I wanted to make, which I know is something that's been a very important focus of the coordinating board over the years, and my opportunity to work with the coordinating board over the years is, as of this date, we have established 79 graduate medical education positions, of which 31, this is in the state of Texas, of which 31 are entry-level positions. So I know we are too short of the 1.1 to 1 goal, but for the 30 students that we will put in Texas, we've established at least as many graduate medical education entry-level positions. So I think we are doing our job in that regard, but we're not done because our core hospitals in El Paso are still ramping up under the cap and still have years of growth ahead of them. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and by the way, I'm sorry that Dr. Ogden left, but I wanted to thank him as well. He was instrumental in working with us to gain the MOU. And in actuality, we have been sharing our placement, clerkship placement data with him for 2 years already. We began that as soon as I arrived at Burrell in 2018. So we have already been moving in that direction, and I've had the fortune of being able to work with Dr. Ogden for many years when he was still at Texas A&M and I was at UNT. But I wanted to thank the board for something that you might not be aware of. And thank Dr. Silverman for the work that her team has done over the years in graduate medical education. In the past legislative session in the state of New Mexico, using Texas as a model, the state has, and not a very wealthy state, I might say, has begun to now independently fund graduate medical education in the state. Much of those funds will be coming into the southern part of New Mexico, where those positions are accessible, obviously, to graduates from the region. We already have Texas Tech graduates that are training in Las Cruces to stay in the region. And so it was actually because of the work of the coordinating board and what you were able to do with the state legislature that model was shared with them. They've adopted the model. They're a blue state, so they were able to add Medicaid funds to that as well. And so it is another recognition of that partnership that happens in the border region. I've commented in the past, because it was new to me. I've been in the state of Texas for 37 years. I actually still live in El Paso because I didn't want to change my license plates. But we tend to forget what happens west of Midland. And it's a unique environment, and I am very satisfied from my experience. Burrell is contributing greatly to the workforce development in healthcare, and will continue to do so into the future with your approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to understand the big picture of the school. Mr. Hummer, you're the president of the College of Medicine. Dr. Pesca, you're the dean, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Correct. We're our one-degree institution,
Okay.
so I'm the dean and chief academic officer for the campus.
Okay. And any other allied health programs currently?
Mr. Chairman, our long-range strategic plan is upon regional accreditation with HLC. We will look at workforce needs within the region to see what gaps may exist. But until we are regionally accredited, we will not be able to pursue such programs as a PA program, physical therapy, any type of allied health programs that there is a need. But we have identified certain programs that are on our list that when the time comes, we will do needs assessments, needs analysis. And we've also mentioned this as far as our involvement in El Paso. We're also involved with the Medical Center of Americas, which is the collaborative aspect, not only in the research area, but healthcare programs in general. And we'll practice what we've been preaching and from 2013 till now, is how can we also work within El Paso so that we're collaborating and working together to improve the whole region as a whole.
So I understand the dynamics in the regional area and the proximity that we're talking about with El Paso County and with Las Cruces. So as a past Healthcare Professions State Association president myself recently, have you communicated it, and what is the response from the Texas Osteopathic Association leadership, as well as the New Mexico Osteopathic Association?
Mr. Chairman, with the Texas Osteopathic Association, we actually have, when we went through our pre-accreditation with COCA, we had a letter of support from them. So they supported us from the very beginning as far as the development of our program, and so that was presented at our pre-accreditation with COCA. The New Mexico Osteopathic Association, we're very involved, obviously, given it's based in New Mexico, and we're very active, and we have members of our faculty that are active with the association.
So you can imagine, in my position as chair, I've heard about this because I've been looking at this for almost a year, and appreciate y'all's diligence and working with our staff. So I hear from a lot of folks as well, and so one of the questions that I get a lot is, why doesn't Burrell have the clerkships established in New Mexico and other areas of surrounding states? I'd like to have comments on that.
Well, we are, from the very beginning of our feasibility study and planning, as Bob Wingo mentioned, we have a regional mission. It is not, we are agnostic when you look at it as a private organization between the state lines. And it also extends into Arizona, the southwestern part of the United States. We have a presence in Tucson as well, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, El Paso. from that aspect. So it was founded upon where was the need and where were we invited to play a role. The community of El Paso, the hospital systems, not only the Las Palmas del Sol, but Hospitals of Providence. They were an affiliate. University Medical Center, they signed our affiliation agreement. The VA, all the community organizations, civic and business organizations, elected officials endorsed us when we went through the accreditation process. So it was founded on a regional mission, not just focused on that. And I would say that we are not we are not different than many of the osteopathic medical schools that have the distributive model versus the main campus model where you're all just focused in one area. It's very common among the osteopathic medical schools. If Dr. Pesca would like to speak to that as far as a model of distribution. Yeah.
We were fortunate in Texas, given our size, the diversity of resources available that enabled us, when I was at UNT, to confine all of our core rotations to the state of Texas. However, when we looked at legislation in the past regarding the protection of core clerkships, which was a work I was pleased to be able to do with the coordinating board and with state legislature, we recognized that growth over time was going to have to recognize that there is an interdependence in the region, especially with our border states, and that there would be some movement across those borders. I think this is one example of it. Historically, and I was not aware of it until we got more into this question, there were points in time when Paul Foster School of Medicine had students up in New Mexico doing core rotations. We still see some students at our affiliates in eastern New Mexico doing emergency medicine rotations. And so while we are a federalist system of governance, we are one country, and some of those lines begin to get blurred. So indeed, we will, if given no other opportunity, we'll have to increase our capacities wherever else we are in order to satisfy our own accreditation through the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation. But it does begin to take us away from our mission, which is focused in the border region.
Dr. Pesca, you have a history and a background of being a dean at a osteopathic school of medicine here in the state of Texas. You referenced that. As you know, in Texas we have a school that Incarnate Word in San Antonio, which is a DO program, which is had not yet graduated their first class. And as you know, this board has in October recommended, and there will be a new school at Sam Houston State University starting a DO program, but not specifically just a DO programs, but just clerkships in general in terms of growing medical schools, and 2 new medical schools, UTRGV and Dell Medical School, coming on board that haven't graduated their first classes, and the need for clerkships in the state. And how can you address that for those folks that are out there listening online and that have commented to our board members, our committee, about the concern globally in the state to be able to meet the Texas residents' needs for clerkships and allowing this proposal to be set forth as it's set forth in front of us now?
Well, I'm a resident of the state of Texas, continue to be so, and share the concern about our ability as a state to continue to train the workforce that we need to take care of us. For those who are listening online and not watching online, I have gray hair and not too much of it. So I will be tapping into the healthcare workforce quite a bit in the near future. But what we have found in our work over the past few years, and thinking creatively, recognizing that not all healthcare training has to happen in a ivory tower in the center of town, that there are opportunities
around the state, untapped resources. Some have been artificially constrained because of the way funding works for graduate medical education from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. As the funding has come from the state, it has now opened more and more hospitals and community health centers to education that were never thought of as viable candidates before. And we are diversifying the portfolio of teaching centers as a result of that. We still have many large hospital systems around the state. One that comes to mind is Trinity Mother Frances in Tyler, 750-bed hospital that's doesn't do any appreciable teaching other than some OB rotations for the family medicine residency at UT Tyler, simply because the medical education was only looked at from the standpoint of residency, and if there was nobody there to pay for it, then education couldn't happen. We've identified that where we begin with students, that institutions have a chance to dip their toe in the water. You have more one-on-one training between students and practicing physicians without resident intermediaries, and students get a very different experience. I'm very pleased to say that as a result of the experiences that we are providing, including that which is being provided in El Paso, our student performance on the clinical part of their boards has been absolutely spectacular. So we have ways of training in medicine that may in some ways be archaic because they go back to the apprenticeship models of the early 20th century and late 19th century. But indeed, they are effective methods of education, and we are seeing more and more of our schools recognizing that, moving more into those those methods of bringing education to students very effectively. Fortunately, we still have national standards that we have to meet so that we know that our institutional effectiveness is being maintained. But we were very successful at this at osteopathic medical schools around the country who historically did not own and operate what we now see as university medical centers and high-volume hospitals.
Okay, I'd like to.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, could I add one
Sure.
comment to what Dr. Pesca said?
Yes, sir.
Because it's a very important point, because we hear the same things in the communities that we're at as far as those questions. The total number of private physicians that we have right now that are clinical faculty within our whole system, I think it's right around 640 plus or minus on that. So that's 640 physicians that were not clinical faculty before we opened. Very few of them were actually taking students before we started. I always use this term. In life, there's an abundance philosophy or a scarcity philosophy, and in medical education, you run into a lot of scarcity. That there's a scarcity there, and a credit to Dr. Pesca and our clinical affairs team. And I'm a former hospital CEO, as hospital CEO for 25 years, and been in academic teaching hospitals as well. Is that it's daily work. They have to get up every day and go talk to physicians and encourage them to teach, and not every physician should be a teacher. But if you expect them to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to take a student, that's not how you recruit clinical faculty. So I'm very proud of the team that we have, and it's a daily focus on how can we expand the abundance of clinical faculty. They're there. They're all over the country. Nationally, there's a lot of physicians that have not taken a student that, given the opportunity, will do so.
Okay, any comments? I'd like to open up to the committee now. I don't want to ask all the questions or comments. I'd like for the committee to also, anybody want to address the topic for the panel, please? Mr. Wilson?
So how many students do you have now in the school nationally, or? I'm just trying to get a size.
I don't want to misquote the
We have total enrollment right now of 4 classes with 630 students. Our overall retention has been just over 97%. We don't have a 6-year graduation number yet because we are only 4 years in. Of the 162 students that started the program that would be graduating, there are still 135 that will be graduating in May.
And the home base is in Las Cruces, or where was it started originally?
Yes, Las Cruces. We're on the campus of New Mexico State University. It was a public-private agreement that was reached, separately owned, separately governed, but with an affiliation with the state university. The chancellor and the president of New Mexico State sit on our board as well. We have board members from El Paso, board members from northern New Mexico, so we have representation throughout our region.
Got it.
Any other questions or comment? Ms. Williams?
I have a question, and I think this is more for coordinating board. How would the clerkships tie to 60 by 30?
Well, the clerkships are the third and fourth year of medical school. And so once they finish with that fourth year and they're a graduate of a medical school, and since they would operate inside Texas, I believe we would count them.
They would count towards the first goal in terms of the total educated 25 to 34-year-old population. We don't address them in our second goal in terms of graduates. We only include certificates, associates, bachelors, and masters for that goal.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? After hearing the discussion, you know, there's a couple of things that come to mind, and I appreciate, first of all, y'all being here, and I appreciate all the work that the staff and the commissioner have put in, all of us that are, especially the staff, but have been keeping the committee up to date, and myself. But I would like to move to postpone the consideration of this agenda item 5D regarding Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine to Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, which is our next committee meeting. So yes, Dr. Pesta.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, there is a lot of planning that goes into clerkship assignments. And given that we still have to go through the full board, which is currently scheduled for October, that becomes kind of the end of the line for us, and that's why you saw some of the dates of when we work out these issues with Paul Foster School of Medicine, because those assignments have to be made.
I can appreciate that, but we've received information recently, the board has, just as of last night, that I think that the committee needs to review and before we go to the full board. So that's my recommendation. We're going to take a vote on that, and I appreciate your concern and all that. We want to continue to work with you. I'm not in any way saying that I'm opposed to this. I'm saying we have information that we would like to review and give some more time to this topic. And so that's my motion, and it's up to this committee to decide that. But I appreciate your comment.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
Would that preclude consideration at the board meeting in October, or does this have to come before that?
No, that would, yes. Our recommendation, my motion is to move it, this agenda item to our next committee meeting. So it would not appear on the agenda in the October board meeting. It would have to be to the next committee meeting. It's my recommendation.
And Mr. Chairman, a question,
Yes.
will we have the opportunity to respond to the information that you've received?
Definitely, yes. And that's why I want dialogue. I want the committee to be very comfortable with all this information. I want Burrell to be very comfortable, Texas Tech, and all the information that we're getting. So I want the staff to work very closely, continue to work closely with you in terms of getting this topic before us again in December. Dr. Peebles, would you like to comment on any of that? I know this is new to you too as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. The only comment I would make about this is that I would hope that the Burrell College of Medicine and Texas Tech can continue the kind of cooperation they've had already on this, because there may be or could be some impact on students, and so.
No, I understand that, but we want to get this right because this is important.
And I don't disagree with that at all. And that's why I hope that they continue to work together.
Yes, and there's not any problem with the memorandum. I know that there were some in late August, there was an adjustment of the numbers, and we're totally aware of up to 30. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rex, up to 30 students?
Yes, so the number originally, way back when, had started at 50, and the
Right.
the memorandum of understanding actually then caps that at 30.
30 now, and that was an adjustment to the memorandum dated by both Texas Tech. And so this is an opportunity, not an issue between Texas Tech and Burrell, but just overall encompassing the rest of the stakeholders that are wanting to chime in on this a little further. Commissioner?
Well, I obviously won't have a role in this since this will occur after my expiration date of September 30th. But based on what we just heard Dr. Pesca say, is another possibility, and I'm just throwing this up, is another possibility that if we give board members all the information they need, would you be agreeable to the possibility of bringing this matter before the full board at the October board meeting?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, especially for hearing what Dr. Pesca
Could that
said.
be some help to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is about the students. They, over winter break, they start looking for housing. They move to the community, so it is our compact with them that they will know by that time where they're doing their clinical rotations. Delays beyond that point I'm not going to say it would be impossible for this to happen, but it would make it pretty close to impossible for it to happen for next year.
And if I might add, Mr. Chairman, right now, we're in our second cohort of students that are living and doing clerkships in El Paso. There's 43 there right now. So we're going down to 30. So we're actually, and with the 43, we've been able to coexist. And the difference between the 25 and the 30 was over a phone call, literally between Dr. Lang and myself when I didn't have it in front of me, and he mentioned the number. And I said, is 30 an issue? I mean, we have 43 right now. I said, that's not a problem at all. And he goes, in fact, quote unquote, he said, if there's extra capacity, then we can always revisit that number. So I wanted to give some context to that number, why it went from 25 to 30, but it's down from 43 that we have there right now.
Okay, no, I appreciate that because I didn't have that information, and I don't think the committee didn't either as well. But I think that's really important. I think, Dr. Pesca, I appreciate you letting me know about the urgency or the timeline because that's very important information. Again, I'm not opposed to this personally. I'm not speaking for the committee, but personally I'm not opposed to this. But I would like to know, since we've got some information, some questions, I'd like to be very transparent to all those involved and all the stakeholders. And I have no problem, as the commissioner suggested, getting the information and the committee not taking a vote, but maybe just moving forward to the board meeting and the full committee. So I just wanted some time in between to be able to get the information that we have to do a little bit more due diligence on the information.
So would we move it, would we not just hold a small committee, brief committee meeting prior to the board meeting on the day of?
No, I don't think we have to. That's a good point, Mr. Wilson. I think what the committee doesn't have to make a recommendation, not toward
We just
the
go
board.
straight to the full
We'll
board.
go straight to the full board. And we've done that before. This committee has done that before, by the way, recently on another topic, is that we don't necessarily recommend or deny the recommendation to the board, but we can still keep the process going in order to get it and have to do the background and make sure everybody has information fully to the extent that we have now to be able to inform all the board. We'll make the decision, obviously. So in other words, we won't take an official vote recommending the recommendation from the staff, but what we can do is not hold, I don't want to hold it up because of your needs, obviously, but what I would like to do is have more time to work on that, if that makes any sense at all. Yes, sir. Okay, so we can, so I can entertain a motion.
So Bill, what's the,
Could tailor your motion.
Yes, I have a table.
process here, do we,
I can table my motion, correct? Or call-
Tailor it. You can withdraw.
I'll withdraw.
Yeah.
And for consideration, other than just change the date probably to our board meeting, is the same thing.
That's what I was just going to suggest.
I
If
can
you want,
postpone.
you can do the same motion, but make
change
it
the
to
date.
the date of the October board meeting.
Yes. So basically, that's it. I would postpone the consideration of the item until the next board meeting. Instead of a next committee meeting in December, I can recommend the motion to be an October board meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will that be good?
And if you need another committee meeting prior to that,
We
you
could
can
have
always
that.
call one.
Sure.
And
Between the
we
board
just
meeting.
have to provide notice, 7 days notice, so
Okay.
that you could schedule that in advance of the board meeting if you so desired, along the lines Mr. Wilson was saying.
Okay. I think that's right. Is that reasonable, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Pesca,
It takes me
Mr.
about
Wingo?
9 hours to drive here if I can't get a flight. So anytime you need any of us back in the
Yes.
interim, we'll be happy to be back.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate y'all making the long trip. I know it's a long way.
Happy to be here.
Thanks.
And Linda just pointed out to me, there is an AOC meeting the day before the board meeting, if you wanted to schedule a committee meeting for that date.
We could do that as well. We've got time to make a decision, Mr. Wilson, on that, but that's good. But for sure, I would like to schedule it for at least the board meeting. Is that amendable? Is that okay with
What day is the
Burrell?
board meeting?
The board meeting, Mary, is October 24th. Okay, it'll be October 24th. And that'll get enough time for the information for the committee and to see if the committee has any issues with the information or any information we may need from you through the staff, so I appreciate that. And then we can provide information to the full board for action at that time. So we can continue that without having a formal recommendation up or down by this committee. Is that okay? You're very welcome. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate that very much. I must take a vote on that first, but I have made a motion to postpone the consideration of agenda item 5D regarding Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine till October, Mary says 24th, 2019. All in favor, please signify by saying aye or saying aye.
I second.
Okay, you had a motion? I made the motion. I have a second. Ms. Williams seconds. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5E. Is that correct, Rex? Okay, that's consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the report of effectiveness of the Advised Texas Program, Rider 5186, Texas Legislature Regular Session. Mr. Booker will present this item. Jarrell?
Good afternoon. This is a legislatively mandated item, Rider 51, where we give an evaluation on the Advised Texas Program. Many of you familiar with our near-peer project, where we have near-peer advisors in 110 high schools through our 4 partners, Texas A&M, University of Texas at Austin, Trinity University, and Texas Christian University. We also partner with a national nonprofit called the College Advising Corps, where we kind of utilize their training model. Over the last biennium, we received $4 million. We're in our second year, so this is the actual report on the effectiveness of that project. Ultimately, to give you a little background, the advisors provide admissions and financial aid, advising the students and families through one-on-one and group sessions. They help students kind of select the best fit for them in going to college. Just as a reminder of this population, this is a very difficult population that we've put these advisors in. These schools, the majority of the campus is free and reduced lunch. They have a less than 7% direct-to-college rate. More than 55% or less than 55% actually chose a more of college curriculum, the distinguished college track. So you're dealing with schools that have a lot of challenges. And I know Dr. Eklund mentioned earlier about our direct-to-college rate and summer melt. This project is directly tied to trying to achieve and improve some of those numbers and outcomes that she laid out earlier today. So what I would love to get to is what we found in the project and outcomes. I'm excited that we actually, this year versus last year, we served a little over 1,000 more students and supported them in applying to college. We increased the number of FAFSA completions and scholarship applications. We also held over 160,000 one-on-one meetings with students and families. That number boils down to basically 41,000 seniors were served, and then they probably were seen more than once.
Also, with some of the quantitative findings, with the amount of students we're serving, in the ongoing effort to create a college-going culture, we still saw college enrollment increase by 1.2 percentage points for low-income students. For this population, in light of the declining number, that's a pretty good success for us in comparison to other low-income students if you compare apples to apples. Also for African American students, which is the target population of the 60 by 30 plan, we saw a 2.7% percentage point increase for them for four-year college attendance, and also we saw an increase for Hispanic students in two-year colleges. We saw other increases, but they just weren't statistically significant to even mention, but these items that I point out here are significant. We learned over the years that the size of the high school matters. These schools have large high schools, large graduating classes. The larger the school, we probably need to put more than one advisor in to have the impact we're seeking, but we still have to get more grant funds, which Ms. McKenzie just mentioned a second ago around how can we actually expand the numbers where we need more advisors in certain schools currently, and then look to expand some of those high schools moving forward. One exciting part about this project with Advise Texas is even though we're moving and increasing in some areas, it's probably not to the degree that we want to. It's fast. If you couple the totals from last year and this year, it's about 5 percentage points. But we're starting to see this sort of growth, and we're building that sort of culture from the 9th graders and 10th graders who are now 11th and 12th graders. It's starting to really show some return on investment is my belief. Most recently, we received about, we work closely with TWC. The commissioner worked with TWC through our tri-agency agreement, our partnership, and we received about almost $6 million to help serve students with IDD. And also House Bill 3, which I think is a big step forward for K-12 and improving college readiness, where TEA is going to be able to give districts bonuses for students who are showing college, career, and military readiness. They're also requiring FAFSA and TASFA. They're requiring FAFSA, financial aid applications for graduation, the requirement of graduation, which we'll clearly see an increase in that, to which there'll be a greater need for these advisors in these schools to serve, because now it's a bigger focus for K-12. So the last point is House Bill 3 also requires school boards to adopt and monitor college and career readiness, military readiness plans. So our advisors will have a major impact on that. All in all, I'm just excited that the program is still showing signs of success, that we're still growing the program, that school districts are still matching and putting funds into the program, and I do think there's a greater need to expand it in other regions. And I think some of the results over the last 2 years, as we take it back to the LBB and the governor, might be something they might want to consider.
Thank you, Jarrell. Any questions or comments for Jarrell? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams, a second? Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We're moving on to agenda item 5F, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the report on the recruitment of persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities at institutions of higher education. Mr. Booker will present this item. Jarrell?
Sure. This is another legislative report. Over the last few years, a lot of attention and a lot of policy and interest has been garnered for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Most recently, we've been required as an agency to work with the institutions of higher ed to designate a liaison to help support these students when they apply and attend campus. There's also now a post-secondary educational opportunities for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities advisory council, which you will see was on your agenda for actually the appointments of that council. And most recently, I believe Lone Star College, Rex stepped away, Lone Star College System District were allowed to create an occupational life skills degree program. I think it's an associate degree program, which is showing that this is a population that IHEs are looking to serve better, and us as an agency are looking to find ways to help them serve and graduate and meet their needs moving forward. What we do every year is we provide a survey to the institutions regarding how they are serving this population. A lot of people say, well, what constitutes IDD? And you'll see this kind of lays out the deficits in certain intellectual functions and deficits in certain adaptive functions, is how they're kind of classifying this group. And it also does include people who are diagnosed on the autism spectrum also. With that, we've seen growth in schools who are actually IHEs who are actually presenting in the K-12 level. We've seen growth in IHEs actually participate in career and transition fairs from previous years. And also we've seen a larger percentage of institutions who are providing materials directly related to students with IDD. That did not happen as much in the past, but clearly that is growing. We've seen some common limitations that you see on the slide, but one I want to point out particularly is the inability, the unavailability of transportation. That's been there a few years now. We're going to have to pay special attention to that because that continues to be an issue, as well as financial aid for certain types of transitional programs. The institutions have said that on the last 2 reports, and I think it's now we have to kind of focus on that and figure out how to improve that for these students. As we move forward with these reports, I mentioned the council already, but you will also see that from our previous report, we talked about the Texas advisors helping to serve these students. They will now be able to, they are now getting specialized training to be able to serve students with IDD at the K-12 level and help them with that transition to the higher ed level. And lastly, I think we're gonna have to make a special focus with institutions in utilizing their mentorship money to identify students to serve as mentors, particularly in instances where they don't have Texas advisors. This might be another way to actually serve this population. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Jarrell. Any discussion, further discussion? Do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation? Agenda item 5F, moved by Mr. Wilson, seconded by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5G is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to allocation of funds for completion models. Jarrell.
Sure. This agenda item is, you've seen this before, but it's $320,000 that have been pulled out of our normal administrative budget to support or to enhance and scale comprehensive gateway course strategy models and completion models. Basically, you have entry-level courses that have high DW with DF and withdrawal rates, and we want to scale and enhance the institutions that are having programs that have been really effective in working with teachers, faculty, and students, and actually getting them to persist. So we're just asking for favorable approval to submit to develop and publish an RFA to get grants, to get proposals for this, and then fund them up to $320,000 for these models.
Okay, any questions or discussion? If not, do I hear a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, a second. Second, Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5H, it was on the consent calendar. Agenda item 5I is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of a request for offer for the Open Educational Resources State Repository Project. Dr. Peebles.
So thank you. The 85th Legislature directed the coordinating board to conduct a feasibility study for establishing an open educational resources repository. And the 86th Legislature then, as a result of that feasibility study, directed the coordinating board to establish a repository for open educational resources. And this is to allow us to release the request for offers that will go out to vendors to establish that repository for the OER.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Peebles on this topic? If not, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, second. Second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5J is consideration of adopting the Learning Technology Advisory Committee's recommendation to the committee relating to the revision of the principles of good practice for academic degree and certificate programs and credit courses offered at a distance. Dr. Justin Lauder chair of the committee, along with Dr. Peebles, will be presenting this item and will be available for questions afterwards. Welcome, Dr. Louder. Dr. Peebles?
I'll go ahead and let, you want to start or you would like for me to? Okay, I'll start. So we have long had principles of good practice for academic degree programs and online education, and it's one of the things that we look at in reviewing program proposals as to whether institutions are certifying compliance with those things and how they build them into their programs. But as noted in the yellow pages, they were last revised in 2010, and so we felt it the need to look at these again, and so the Learning Technology Advisory Committee took on that task, and they looked at a number of documents that are outlined there. They looked at SACS requirements, what are referred to as CRAC requirements, which is the Council for Online Education, but also two of the leading companies that have developed rubrics for this, Quality Matters being one of them, that have developed rubrics for institutions to look at their online programs and see if they're in good practice. And what the committee then did was they looked at all of those sources of information along with our existing principles of good practice, and then sort of, if you will, sort of amalgamated those into one set of principles for programs to use. And I'll let you add to that if you wish.
Dr. Louder, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Peebles, and members of the committee. And as a Valley kid, I'm happy to be here. So as Dr. Peebles said, the committee looked at this for about 2 years in updating the principles and updating the process. We asked for significant input from colleagues around the state at both 2-year, 4-year private institutions, health-related institutions, and public academics. And we took all of those comments and put it together in a document that follows best practices of what distance and online education followed today, which has changed, as you could imagine, since 2010. We have added additional comment, or we've added content related to accessibility, related to interaction, and related to student services to make sure students are prepared, are getting the best possible education. And so as Dr. Peebles said, when new degree programs, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral are developed, they have to certify that they are meeting these principles, and schools and institutions have to follow the principles. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Dr. Louder? What city in the Valley are you from?
McAllen.
Oh, that's where I'm from. Yeah. Thank you for being here. Any other questions? If not, do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams. A second? Second. Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for the work you do as the chair. Agenda item 5K is a report to the committee on school closures and/or teach-outs pursuant to Chapter 7, Subchapter A, Section 7.75. Dr. Peebles will present this item. This is an informational item only.
Thank you. Before I present this item, I'd just like to quickly thank Dr. Louder and the committee for the 2 years of work. They have been working on this for a long time, and for the work that they did in creating this. And also one of my staff, Dr. Lofters, for working with them for the last 2 years on this as well. So thank you, guys.
On all these programs, it takes a lot of years, these proposals and these committee works, and that's why we thank everybody all the time. You probably think they're thanking everybody, but there's so much that goes into years of work, not only the proposal, but our staff. I mean, they probably dream about this stuff sometimes. Go ahead, Rex, I'm sorry.
Or have nightmares about it, as the case may be.
David's only 30 years old.
So this is our usual report on school closures that have occurred in the past quarter. There's a couple of things that I want to note. There's a rather extensive list this time around.
I noticed that.
For a while there, we saw a shorter list. But I will point out that you have National American University. There are 3 locations recognized for it, and then you also have University of Phoenix, which has 4 locations recognized there. And what's happening with them is they are, and they have been, and they continue to close their physical locations. but their online operations are still there. And so they have provided the teach-outs they need for their students with either extending the classes or providing for an online option for those students. But their transcripts are also still being kept at corporate headquarters and that kind of thing, because they're still in business. They're just closing their physical locations. All right. Now, the others have all including Carrington, which is on that first page, and then the Peloton campuses as well have also notified us of their closures, and they have provided adequate teach-out plans and have also provided for their transcripts. So again, while the contraction in that particular industry continues, it seems to be much more orderly these days.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5L1 we'll move on to is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of a request for applications for Open Educational Resources Grant. Dr. Peebles will present this item.
A couple of moments ago, we talked about establishing an Open Education Resources Repository, but we need something to put into it, and so the 85th legislature created a grant program for the development of these, and the 86th legislature has continued that grant program, and we got it set up in such a way that once we get the repository established, which is probably $100,000 plus cost up front, but the cost of maintenance is much lower, and so we'll be able to use any appropriated funds for the grant program that we don't use for the repository. So we want to go ahead and issue another round of RFAs to allow faculty to apply for grants to develop these open education resources.
Any questions or comments, discussion for Dr. Peebles on this item? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation? Moved by Mr. Anwar, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5L2 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating on issuance of requests for applications for minority health research and education grant programs. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So this is an annual request that we make for minority health research and education grant program to go ahead and issue the RFAs for grants in this area. We have consistently, I think, at least in the last few years, under 60 by 30, prioritized things like student completion and program enrollment, and also built into the RFA marketable skills goal as well. We have 4 grants that ended in August of 2019, and we have approximately $1.5 million available for this coming fiscal year to award grants.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions or discussion on the topic? If not, do I hear a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 5M, 1 through 6. They were on the consent calendar. So agenda item 5M7 is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the appointment of members to the Post-Secondary Educational Opportunities for Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Council. Members, you have supplemental material for this item. That's the Golrod page in your booklets. Jarrell Booker will present this item. Mr. Booker.
Yeah, this is brief. It's 11 members that it's composed of expertise around post-secondary opportunities for persons with IDD. I just presented on the savor of the report, and we just asked for favorable approval of the people we've added to this council. A lot of these people have worked on this sort of issues for a while now, and I just think we've done a good job in selecting the individuals who really moves us forward, particularly some of the recommendations we came up in our report.
Okay. Any questions or discussion for Mr. Booker? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Booker, you okay? You look like you're looking for something.
Yeah.
We're good? Okay. Agenda item 5N1 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the proposed amendments to Chapter 15, Subchapter C, Section 15.43 of the Board Rules concerning the eligibility criteria to receive distributions from the National Research University Fund. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So these are really 2 cleanup items. The first is that it adjusts the the minimum 75th percentile score for the SAT that's required for eligibility for NRUF or the National Research University Fund. College Board have gone through a couple of changes with their SAT, and so that required a resetting of the score. So they have recalibrated what their own college readiness score is, in a sense, or what that high score is. And so this brings us in line with their current schema, so to speak. And then the other parts of this is to correct names for academies that provide awards that are recognized as criteria, and also to correct the names of faculty awards. And I think Dr. Gardner pointed out that it's kind of interesting how many changes have occurred over the years in the names of these. But this neither adds to that list nor subtracts from the list. It just brings the rule in line with the names that are currently being used. So these are really just two cleanup items for the rules.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peebles. Any discussion or questions? Yes, Mr. Anwar.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to make, you want to make a motion? Okay, motion by Mr. Anwar. The staff recommendation on this item. Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5N2 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the proposed new rules for Chapter 27, Subchapter SS, Sections 27.981 through 27.987 of Board Rules concerning the establishment of Mechanical Engineering Field of Study Advisory Committee. Dr. Peebles, present this item, please.
I'm sorry. I thought that was on consent.
Don't have it on consent. We're on 5N2.
It's not on consent? Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry. I apologize.
okay.
Not this, but I'm with it now. Okay,
Okay.
so this would establish a Mechanical Engineering Field of Study Advisory Committee, and as you know, we have a number of these underway. Is this on the consent calendar?
Okay, then I stand corrected. Okay, it is on the consent calendar. Then we don't have to have a vote on this one?
Okay, so no. Then
No vote?
It's already been agreed to. actually.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry
We'll
about that.
That's okay. Agenda item 5N3 is a consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the proposed rules for Chapter 1, Subchapter U, Sections 1.230 through 1.236 concerning the establishment of a Marketable Skills Task Force. Dr. Peebles.
Okay, this one is not on the consent calendar.
Okay,
Okay.
got that going.
All right. So this is to establish an advisory committee that will be known as the Marketable Skills Task Force. As kind of outlined in the blue pages, and Dr. Gardner, you may want to speak to this in a moment as well. But one of the things that we have discovered in trying to implement the Marketable Skills Goal is that oftentimes business and industry, and when I say that, I include also the public sector as well, is often not very good at really articulating the kinds of skills and knowledge that they want in employees. There's also a translation problem between the kind of nomenclature that colleges use for skills and knowledge. Usually it's put into terms of student learning outcomes, which is not necessarily the language that employers use when they develop job descriptions and job postings and that kind of thing. So part of the idea behind this and the genesis of this was in an idea that Dr. Gardner had about developing a sort of learning community where institutions, faculty, coordinating board, but also representatives from business and industry and the public sector could actually come together and talk about these kinds of issues. And so we have an outside entity. You've already approved a consulting firm for this. Fogum Consulting is working with us on developing this in terms of membership and a charge to this committee. But we felt like, and we still feel like, that we need some outside input and some outside help with trying to define the marketable skills.
The one thing I would add is that the intent is to keep up that process, because we know what may be the marketable skills today may not be tomorrow. And so I like to use the phrase learning community for the group, because so they don't sit there and point at each other. They figure out what's really needed by the students, what's really needed by our economy to function well, and to work together in terms of making sure that we identify those things for the students going forward. And the consulting group is a first attempt at, that group will really be sitting with industry to talk about what do you think the issues are before we get to the true learning community aspect to get their feedback. But we think it's important. We can't assume, and you just can't have this occasional get together. They won't be meeting all the time, but they'll be providing feedback to us and to the institutions at least annually going forward.
Okay, good. Any questions or further discussion?
Will the consulting firm also be involved in the process once the advisory committee's established, or?
That's not our thought at this point. The thought is that the consulting company provide really directions and thoughts from industry in terms of how they think this might function in a way that they'll benefit. So we hear a lot from the institutions. We want to hear more directly from industry before we actually get our committee together. We would be
industry determine what marketable skills are needed out there?
Well, they would bring their thoughts to the table. They would sit down with institutions, and as Rick said, part of the issue is sometimes they may be talking past each other. So part of this is to help translate, or when the institutions hear it, are they really understand what industry is saying? Or do they really understand from industry that there's some skills that are being developed they don't know? You know, many companies, in my talking with them, sort of look at specific degrees when others have understood that while those specific degrees are important, that the other degrees may be helpful. You just heard this morning someone talking about how Google likes to hire some English majors because of different things they bring to the table. Not every company understands that. That's a cutting edge company that does understand that. That's not the bulk of their employees. So but I can't say exactly what they'll learn, or there wouldn't be any point of having the group. We need to learn.
Yeah, I think he's asking what's the role of the consultant?
The consultant is, they will have 2 meetings with industry, and from that, they're going to get feedback from industry in terms of how they think that this committee we have will structure best, how they can contribute, who to include in the committee, just basic directions in terms of how it would function. So we don't just think this is like any other advisory group we get together. It may need to be structured differently than we would normally do it. We want to learn that from them.
Okay.
And even in terms of, they might have thoughts in terms of rotation on the committee, how long people should stay on, what types of people from companies should participate. As you know, sometimes there's this gap between the HR folks and the actual managers in terms of what's needed, and so what combination do we need, and that may vary by sector. There are a lot of things we need to learn. So that's the real point of having that first step with a consultant. Thank you, I didn't understand the question.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? If not, do I have a motion to adopt the commissioner's recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 501 is consideration of adopting the commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to the proposed amendments to Chapter 4, Subchapter D, Sections 4.83, 4.84, and 4.85 of the Board Rules concerning institutional agreements and state funding of dual credit courses. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So these are rules that were already approved by the board as emergency rules at the July board meeting, but process requires us to then put them out for public comment and then bring them back to, again, for a full committee in board hearing. There were no comments received as of the date of this, and we received no comments in this item at all. The rules essentially do 2 things. One is they provide funding for field of study and program of study courses for dual credit students. And secondly, there was legislation passed in this past legislative session that mandated certain new components for the MOUs, the Memorandums of Understanding that exist between ISDs and colleges offering dual credit. Things like common advisory language, and also cooperation on trying to align endorsements with both dual credit and then with college programs. And so Again, these were passed as emergency rules in July, and we're bringing them back for full consideration.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on the topic? If not, do I have a motion to adopt the Commissioner's recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, second by Mr. Anwar. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. So at this point, as Chair of the Academic Workforce Success Committee, I'm going to take a point of privilege here to thank Commissioner Raymond Paredes for this, I believe, is your last committee meeting. He's been with us 15 years plus, and we really can't thank you enough. Of course, the board had a dinner last month in his honor, thanking him. But publicly, those online and those that are here, I can't tell you enough, Raymond, how impact you've had not only for us, the current board members, and talking to past board members, and your impact on higher education in the state of Texas and the impact it's made to students and families and improving lives because of your impact and the work that you've done over the years. We thank you again. We appreciate all you've done, and I know you're not going far away, and that you'll be in Texas. So we just want to, a standing ovation for our Commissioner, Raymond Paredes. Thank you so much. I'd like for the staff, any staff members that are here, we'll take a few photos at the end of the meeting, if you could please stay. Raymond, thank you for all you do, and I know the board and everybody in the state of Texas owes you gratitude. And if you'd like to say a few words.
It's been a pleasure and a privilege.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Agenda item 5P is adjournment. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Williams, second. Second by, thank you, Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.